just pull up the PDFs and maximize them, and we're good. And look at that. That's wrong. See, look, I did miss something. Government's a Greyhawk. Watch. Doop. There we go. Now it's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, really, a government could be a meta org.
Well, meta org is not in-game. We talked about in-game stuff. So, or are meta orgs in-game stuff? No,
Yeah, they're in-game.
Okay. See, there you go. That was new. I didn't realize that. I thought it was all about how the Living Greyhawk campaign was organized.
No. The meta org would be like
the
Rook Roost Thieves Guild. Was a meta.
See,
What's up, Troy? Can
I
you hear
learned
us?
something if you haven't even started yet. So
What's up, What's up, Dragon? Can you hear us? Hopefully you can hear us.
Hi, Troy.
Good.
Yep, good. Yep.
That's a good to hear.
Come here, kitty. I gotta get hero points for tomorrow night. I need to get all my cats.
Oh no! Yeah, you're gonna be begging for hero points. So there's Kayla's in and Taryn's in. I think you're not gonna get a single hero point from the audience. Well, you never know. You never know, right? So I just hit a button and nothing happened. Oh, there we go. I didn't hit it hard enough. So yeah, look at that, everyone. You have 5. If you are a follower, you have 5 brand new emotes. Everyone, you have all the Order of Ulick locational shields, and the Slain Knights Just Far SWAT shield has been added to anyone who's a follower. Yep. You got 4 of them there, Troy. You're missing 1. Yeah, there you go. Yep. That's all you need to be as a follower to get those shields. It's a new beta program with, and I'll mention something again as we go. But we are in the beta. I'm not sure if everyone is, but I know we are, and so there you go. Add in some more stuff. It's really cool when you go into a raid on our channel and everyone throws all the heraldry up. that is when it's cool. So, oh man, sound quality good. Everyone good on sound? Not too high, not too low. I gotta figure out where Chuck is. I think Chuck's been real busy. I haven't talked to him all week, so. Music is overpowered on this one. Yeah, I know. It's overpowered on this one. Alright, turn it down a little bit. Awesome. A flex raid. You got it, Troy. Absolutely. Thanks, Kems, for joining I think you joined the Greyhawk Online Discord today or yesterday, and my brain is all about. I think it was today. I'm mush on what day that was. But cool, man. Good to see you there.
John's like joining us here in a moment. He just needs the Zoom link again. You can make fun of him here. I just posted.
Yeah, just give him the number, please. Perfect. Well, that's good. Better than bad. Awesome. Yeah, like I said, sometimes I got so much going on. Only 4 streams this week too, if you count. Well, actually, Gavin getting pushed to Monday because I'm not having Gavin on 4th of July night. My wife would kill me. Hey, Megan.
Nor should you. Hopefully, everyone has a safe 4th.
If you all did not see Gavin's Sunday night with Jeremy from Gamescape as the guest and all the great technical data that he gave us. Uh-oh. Let me tell you, shout-out's not working. Oh, great. Doesn't look like my shout-outs are working.
Try a different one.
You gotta be kidding me. Oh, don't you love
the shout-outs not work?
Streamlabs.
What is Streamlabs?
It's not linked. All right.
It's the box.
It's not linked for some reason.
Magic box.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out of it.
Have you tried turning it off and back on again?
Yeah, I'm going to log out of Streamlabs.
Like Wacom Tablet. Sometimes you just plug it in.
Oh, Nah, Tino, it was no big deal. I was on, and I was like, I bet you I can find them, and I did. And then there you go. You got a follow out of it. So it was.
That's
it was all,
some serious
all good.
Twitch customer service right there.
All right, I'm just trying to log back into Streamlabs, so it may take me a couple minutes to get it because it's not noted. The way you know is Streamlabs will show up as a moderator. So here comes John. There he is. It's the power on. Yeah, I don't know half the time. Let me see. It's gonna take a while for it to show up. I see Brox is on modding.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
Yeah.
Busy.
See you again.
Good to see you too.
Is your 3D printer fixed? Didn't
Whoops.
you have a 3D printer
I should have
go
wrong button.
down?
Yeah.
I think they
so
got
I
a
just
new one.
there. Jay just wrong buttoned it. So let me just go about there. So yeah. Trying to fix these shout outs. Nope, still not. Alright, well that's
Who's your IT person?
it could be them. It could be them. It goes on and off. But I tested them. Hey, what's up, Naz? I tested them literally 30 minutes before we came on. Yeah, so we had our Ender 5 was down. It took Bill about a month to figure out what was wrong. In the meantime, we got an Ender 3. And
The entry level Ender, right?
yeah, which is just for printing out like a lot of this stuff over and it's good. And then I know we talked about this last night, but Jeremy gave us an Ender, an LD Mars 2 resin printer, brand new, because he wanted us to print up more of his stuff and in resin. So it's okay.
Like a higher quality print?
Well, resin is much more detailed and smaller prints for miniatures and dungeon dressing and things like that. So, yeah, it was really, really nice. Yep, still no shout outs. Wonderful.
Battle Grip System 3000.
Yeah, I'm just babbling here. I'm sorry on this one. We're just babbling here, Chromie. Sorry. I'm talking about my woes with not having a. Turn that down. Our woes with not having any shout outs working. So I did mute. If it would come back up. Because that would suck.
I did a Kickstarter for 3D terrain recently that I should get in a
Really?
few months or next year. Yeah, finally. I don't know when we're gonna get back gaming our table here in Massachusetts. Man, I want some 3D terrain. I want to be a miniature J. I don't have the printer or the time to fabricate, so I jumped on a Kickstarter that was doing some out of England.
Really? And it's just STLs?
No. This is they're sending me it's like some sort of snap together kit, but it's not crap.
England's got a lot of quality miniature stuff because of being the seat of Games Workshop, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Dead on. Dead on. Exiting out, and that
Just came up with an idea of a project that I need to do. Yeah, it just struck me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it just struck me that I want to do mile markers. I mean, in the real world, like medieval roads, from Roman roads and onwards, occasionally instead of road signs we have on modern roads, they had like a slab of rock that they inscribed something like how far it is to somewhere or whatever. Exactly. Yeah.
Kilometers to Rome or
Yep.
whatever.
So I'm going to do a Photoshop template with granite texture and the styles and stuff, so you can make your own versions of these stones with heraldry and stuff like that on it. So that's a project I'm going to do. It'll probably take a couple hours in Photoshop to make a template.
hot
And
dog
just
system.
the text and put heraldry in there, because I'm doing my Shieldland map and I realized that's the trail that I'm drawing on the map was once the border of the Great Kingdom. So there will be ancient milestones sitting on occasionally a part of the map
Oh wow.
that have the inscription of the Great Kingdom. So if the characters find it, they can look heraldry and realize that, oh, what it was, there's a backstory around it, so to speak. And I can have these locations. And I realized, instead of just doing one of these, I should do a template in Photoshop that you can just switch out things and you can make all sorts of milestones and have them as handouts and show the players, like, now you come along the road, this is the road, the milestone, and it says this.
And
it
you could
looks
add
like
graffiti to it. Doug
exactly.
was here.
Yeah. Yep.
Or, you know,
Exactly.
I
You
used to
can
kiss my
blood,
butt.
whatever. You can add. You can make each of them unique without too much work. So to speak.
All right,
You have a
John,
good
I'm
template.
risking it. If I crash the stream before we even get online, it's not that big of a deal.
Yep.
So John said, here we go. I'm gonna try and download this, and hopefully this works.
It shouldn't be too big. It's all PDFs.
Yeah, it's just, and I gotta put them. I got a Z folder, submeta folder.
Jay
for
had dealt
you.
with my maps. He could deal with anything from Living Greyhawk.
Yeah.
Right.
I gotta unzip it though, so it means I gotta run the unzip program while I'm streaming. So there's more resources. It should be okay. So I'm just gonna let this. Yeah, it should be. Good evening.
Gary, that was awesome comment. Yep.
Here we go. I'm extracting now. If I crash everyone when I'm doing this, it looks like wow, there's a lot of them. Okay. So I'm just going to take the subfolder certs and put it into your Zeef meta org subfolder I already have here. Boom. Okay. We got it. We got
Now
it.
I got inspired here, so now I start with that project right away here. So
We got
just
100
need to
people
find it.
on. Listen to me babble tonight.
Yep.
Look at that. We went through the sound all the way completely first. All right, so we seem to be good minus shout outs. Good evening, everyone. I'm JK Lord Gazumba. Welcome to another wonderful Legends and Lore. Thank you so very much. Well, at least we know those work. Thank you, Albizin. Thank you for that. Great crew tonight. With me, as usual, is Greyhawk Mike Bridges, the wonderful Anna Meyer,
Hello.
the ever-present Casey Brown, our Draco from during every Living Greyhawk discussion we have, and you may know him as Indicarus, Jonathan Dawes. John, welcome.
Hello.
Zeef was like probably one of the best shows we ever had when it came to Living Greyhawk. That discussion. I'm
Yeah,
really excited to
absolutely.
have you back on tonight.
We get a twofer because
Thanks
we can
a
also
lot.
talk about Duchy of Ernst.
Yes. Yes, we did. Hey, John, what's going on, man? Did I miss your raid in? I missed it. Oh my gosh. See, so I apologize, John.
I saw that.
Yeah, I really apologize. So what happened is I am not getting I can't shout out on let me go to alert box. I don't have my alert box up. I can't shout out anything right now with the stupid Twitch, like usual. You know, not Twitch, with Streamlabs. It's not letting me shout out anything at all. I apologize. I never saw you come in because we were on another screen. And let's note that. And I'm gonna try to shout you out here and see what happens. There we go. I don't think it's gonna work. So it's not working. It is working. There it goes. Yes, John, you're a lifesaver. It works now. Thank you.
Yep. Wonderful.
Very cool, man. So meta orgs tonight. So this is really hysterical as we are on and thank you all Blue Box and all your mad chatters for coming over. Really appreciate it. Let's have a fun discussion on this. So we're in Cannon Fire chat and I posted at the beginning of the week. And Gary Hooligan goes, "What the hell is this? What's a meta org?" I'm like, what? You don't know? Like Gary was completely confused, and I was like, "Oh man, thank you, Statler." Everyone's confused about what the hell a meta org is. So, John, since you're our guest tonight, tell us what you believe a meta org is as it relates to Living Greyhawk.
All right. Well, a meta org it's sort of like a faction or an organization. From any video game or book or game or history even. But what makes it a meta org is that players in your campaign can join it. So, you know, they could be a knightly order, they could be a thieves guild, they could be a, you know, a secret wizard society, any of these things. And there are tons of them in Greyhawk. Greyhawk City alone has a whole bunch of potential meta orgs, but since Greyhawk City wasn't a place you could really live in living Greyhawk, those ones didn't get developed. But every region in living Greyhawk had some kind of notes from the canon that would lead you to want to develop some meta orgs. And some of them were a little thin on them, so you would make some stuff up that you thought was characterful. But ultimately, that's what it is. It's just it's an organization that your characters can join, and they can put time units into it, and then they can get benefits from it.
See, now we have to explain time units real quick for the audience.
Yeah, please do.
Yep.
So during
Go
Living
ahead, Casey.
Greyhawk, each character had 52 time units, which did not equate to 1 per week, despite the weird coincidence. Adventures had a time unit cost. Your regional adventures cost 1 time unit to play. Out of regional adventures and core adventures cost 2 time units. I forget, maybe cores were 1. But there was a time unit cost. And you could do things later in the campaign with your time units, like I want to buy some property. Well, maybe that costs you 4 time units to go house shopping. The whole point of time units was to limit play so that you couldn't take a character from 1st level to 20th level in 1 year by playing a whole bunch of Living Greyhawk. And orgs would often have a time unit cost that represented your character's participation in that organization. So, you know, it might say 8 time units to join the Rook Roost Thieves Guild, and then 2 time units per year after that. And during that time, you're off-screen training and socializing and doing whatever it is a Rook Roost Thieves Guild member would be doing. And then in exchange, you would get certain benefits, game mechanic.
Okay. So, but why are they meta? Why not call them cool player organizations? That's a great question, Gary. So
it's a good question without a good answer.
Okay. But,
Is it in that MetaOrgs doc that John sent you, the 4-pager? I think basically they were just trying to use the word meta as outside the game, right? Because it was mechanically linked to the rules of the campaign. It wasn't just, you didn't just say, my character is a member of the Thieves Guild. Because that, you know, in a home campaign, you work that out with your dungeon master, right? And, you know, if someone comes up to you and says, oh, my character is a member of the royal family, you're like, no, he's not. He can tell people that in character and make that bluff check or that deception check or whatever. But you had to make an organization in Living Greyhawk for characters to actually join. And I think that's where the word meta comes into it.
Right, so we got 2 questions. Gary asked something a little facetious. Are you saying the players themselves were in the orgs Denver Death Knight lovers? Okay, and then Maddie said, so when you guys talk about meta orgs, are they the ones in the LGG or are they all others in addition to those? I'm assuming others in addition, correct?
I think those were the ones in the LGG were kind of what we started with, and they were developed. Some of them were developed and expanded upon over the 8 years of the campaign. Some were probably not, and then of course tons of new ones were created. But the ultimate idea is that there are all sorts of organizations in Greyhawk, but a meta org was one that your character could join. So a player didn't really join a meta org, a character did.
Right.
So to me, meta is still a little bit weird. But yeah, I could have multiple characters. In fact, my first long-term character that didn't die after a couple of sessions joined the Stalwart Pines meta org for Rangers in the Duchy of Ernst.
Okay.
And he was in that for the duration of his career. But that meta org changed as the campaign grew. One thing about meta orgs was they were really a way to deliver expansion material from new publications that Wizards of the Coast was putting out for Dungeons and Dragons. So we had a main document called the SRD. Don't ask me what that stands for. I don't really remember. But
The
the
system resource
Well, that's the
document.
system
Document, yeah.
reference document. You're thinking of the LGCS.
The LGCS, right. The LGCS. So the LGCS would tell you what stuff was legal for characters to have in the campaign. And it would say, this stuff's core. Anyone who wants to have this feat or this magic item or whatever, they can get it through the normal channels. And then there were certain parts of it that, well, you can't, these are legal to have, but we are not letting anyone just have them. That has to be worked out through your region somehow. And some of them you would get access to through play. So you would play an adventure, and in the adventure, you'd meet someone who, or do something that gave you access to this thing, magic item, or prestige class, or feat, or whatever it happens to be. And that was a way to get them through play. A meta org was a way to get them outside of play. And I think that gives you a little bit of the idea of the meta game that's involved. So you would have something that you had to spend from your character, but it was not during the play of actual adventures. So you would spend time units. Sometimes you would spend money. You would have to spend like an entry fee to be in the Secret Wizard Society or whatever, and you'd pay your annual dues. Sometimes it was the other way around. You'd spend your time units to be a member of the Watch, and you would get paid for doing so. So you'd get some money. It was never as much money as you'd get from adventuring, mind you.
Right.
But they'd also sometimes give you access to special magic items or spells or feats that you couldn't otherwise learn, or prestige classes that you couldn't otherwise get into, which was a big thing in 3rd edition. So all of those things were available through meta orgs. But most of those things, they were sometimes available through play, sometimes available just carte blanche from the game itself in the main document. And then there were some things that we regional administrators, the triads, were allowed to create a mini mission for a particular party or set of characters to do a thing to get access to any one of those things that we were allowed to give access. And then there were some things that were banned. You were not allowed to give access to this prestige class because it's really only a Forgotten Realms thing or whatever. So there was stuff like that too. So there was a whole bunch of documents. I think that document that you have for the meta orgs talks a little bit about that, and the LGCS every yearly edition of that would change the rules for those.
There we go. It works. Sorry, you're all smaller, but now we got this thing maxed out here.
Perfect.
And then each region would have their own, and sometimes through when evolution happens the same place and same way in 2 different places. Like Zyph might have a Paylor meta org, and the Shieldlands might have had a Paylor meta org, but they wouldn't be the same because there was very little cross-regional cooperation, even on what you would think would be world-spanning or Flannis spanning organizations such as the Old Faith or major religions.
So is this the correct version here, do you think?
That's one of the later ones. I'm sure there may have been one more after that.
That was the one we were using when Zyph was new. So that was the one that came out around the 5th or 6th year of the campaign.
Yeah,
okay.
I think there was a version 3, but the differences are going to be pretty minor.
So this is a fairly large, yeah. Mac, Canadian, don't do that to Gary. Gary can prime it. His prime's back up. So thank you so very much for doing that for Mac.
I mean, this thing here covered racial substitution levels, which showed up in the Splat books, and then got just segue. Pathfinder 1E incorporates those, right, as archetypes.
Who was the creator of this document?
That would be the head of the campaign, the Circle of Six, or the RPGA people like Eric Mona, Stephen Radney McFarland, right, and various other people who worked at the RPGA specifically came up with the early versions of this, and probably the Circle members updated it as the campaign went on, as part of their duties.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you. All right, so. Because I mean, there's some details in here. Like it says, players have already spent their full TU/GP cost for joining a meta organization for the year may get a refund of half the TU spent. I mean, oh my gosh, it sounds like a legal document. They also get half the GP cost.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
You
When
could be
you created
audited.
a meta org, you had to follow these rules, right?
Oh
Tom?
my gosh.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and
Hey,
you would
David.
when you made it meta org, you had to create these documents and you had to send them to your meta regional administrator. For me, it was Tim Sek, and we would and he would review them, and he'd get back to us and say, okay, well, you can't do that or whatever, or we need it to be a little bit more expensive in time units if we're going to give so much away or what have you. Most of the time they were rubber stamped, but in form they all had to be put past the leader of our meta region.
Okay.
And to help the audience follow along, I've actually posted the Bandit Kingdoms meta org game book in the Legends and Lore chat on the Discord.
Okay. I have
because this is a
yeah, I have a lot I can pop up here. I can pop up anything you gave me in the PDF. I can get up on the screen here, no problem. So I just minimum time cost unit, 2 per year. So you can, but you can charge as many as you wish.
and you could use the time units would allow the org to give more stuff. I think,
All right,
if I remember correctly.
All right. So can someone give me an application example of the process of say one of your players? Pick someone in your campaign or yourself and someone else's, like how this all went from point A to point B.
Okay, well, in Zeef, because we were a region that started late in the campaign, we had people who were fairly familiar with the way meta orgs worked, and they made their characters in the first place thinking about what meta orgs they wanted to join and what they were going to get out of them. So they actually would try and use their career path through the whole thing, thinking about in advance and hoping that things wouldn't change too much by the time they got to that level. So if you want to, for example, pick up the
Sure, just tell me.
Urizary meta org document.
Okay, and that
sent you.
So let me go to old search, right? And which one?
Urizaries. I think there's one for the Urizaries.
That's in Zeef. Yes, I got it. Boom! Oh, look at that. All right, we're good.
All right. So yeah, it should tell you on there how many time units it costs and what you'll get out of it at the various levels. The Urizaries were a military organization, but you didn't get paid for being in it because you're a bunch of half-orc slaves. So you owed your body to the Sultan. You were basically an indentured servitude for, if I recall, it was 20 years or something like that. So it wasn't a meta org you could easily leave. In the story of it, you always have the right to leave, but we would have. There's a section in this document about what happens if you ever want to leave the Urizaries. But you have to spend a good chunk of your time units on this particular meta org, but it had lots of good stuff in it for you. It gave you discounts. You got a lot of initial equipment because the Sultan owned you and the Sultan owned all of your equipment. You're basically the Sultan's personal guard. But in that, he would equip you well. So it was a finicky way to get some good starting equipment for your character if you were willing to be a half-orc of a military bent.
So it says players be forewarned. By the way, who's the creator of this meta org?
John Hilton O'Brien.
Okay, very cool. And of course, Gary Julian goes right to it. Do they get to keep their ding dongs?
Yes, they do.
I mean, that's.
However,
that's what it says. So he just used the word wang instead. So I'm not a eunuch.
However, we did have a separate meta org for members of the Sultan's harem, and if you were a male member of the Sultan's harem, no, you did not.
Oh my gosh!
See,
how many people were part of that one?
Not very many. In fact, I didn't know too many people who that was a background. So that was something you start your character out with this thing and say, I'm a There's a whole bunch of them, actually. If you looked at the backgrounds, there's a member of the harem, there's escaped from the harem.
Wait a minute,
and
here we go.
these things would have
Here it is.
consequences in game.
Dude, that's a good idea because
Here's the harem.
characters at first level should have a background. And 5th edition figured that out, right?
Mhm.
And so meta orgs in 3rd edition Living Greyhawk are kind of sort of like a 5th edition background for those of you who are playing.
Yeah.
And that they give you a reason for what your character is doing when you're not being a murder hope.
Hmm.
Okay.
I think the one main difference is how restrictive that they are. They usually require you to give up something to be in them, whereas a background in 5th edition is like, hey, it's a background. We all need one. I'll take this one. And these ones generally had, it was usually money. You would have to, and it would have an explanation of why it costs you 100 gold a year, but it was usually 100 gold a year for some minor benefit.
Right.
In the background, but it actually gave you an in-game mechanical benefit as well as a background too, which 5th edition backgrounds also do, of course.
Unix.
Yep.
And it ties into the fact that when they designed 3rd edition and they came up with the concept of prestige classes, you can tell the designers originally intended for the prestige classes to be tied to in-world organizations because of all the early examples.
I like that
classes.
idea as opposed to just a
Right, like-
prestige. Yeah.
Right. To be a gnarly ranger, like that, maybe that's some sort of prestige class, right? Because only the rangers from the gnarly forest learn these 3 tricks or whatever, and they get different kind of benefits as they level. It's like being a specialty priest, but you're a specialty ranger. Being an Iusian wizard or cleric should be different from being a Palerite wizard or cleric, and you see this in 3rd edition game design for the prestige classes. But then they move away from that in all the splat books. There's just hey, you're a gladiator or you're a crazy luck wizard or whatever.
Yeah, for my personal example, my archer Colrith Shalaran was a member of Gnarly Pines Rangers, and that gave me access to the Arcane Archer prestige class. And I was like, well, if I'm going to make a character who's going to join this, I was going to make a character to join a meta org anyways, because I just thought, oh, it's cool. I want to be part of an organization that's real in my setting. What can I get out of it? Okay. It looks like I can become an Arcane Archer. Let's see what that does. Oh, it looks pretty cool. Let's me take wizard levels and then cast spells through my arrows. All right, cool. Well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to want to have a high intelligence. So I made this archer. Normally, you wouldn't make a ranger have a super high intelligence. They don't need it that much. The wisdom is kind of better. Dexterity is kind of better. But I gave him a really high intelligence because I wanted to be able to cast these good spells. So it made me make decisions about the stats of my character right before I even started. That made me maybe not as good of a shot, maybe not as many hit points as someone who is just going to go as a straight ranger or a straight archer type fighter or whatever. But it gave me this cool sense of I can do this because I joined this meta org. Rangers from other places can't do what I'm doing here, and I've put in a lot of time and commitment for my character has, and I have to getting all of the requirements of each level of this meta org, so that I can not only get the stuff from it, but also be sort of unique in the system. The harder it is to get something, the fewer people are going to do it, especially if it's not, the optimal build, as some people like to say. If you've been playing a little bit too much World of Warcraft and trying to inject it into your D&D, some people want the very best. What's the most damage you can get out of your archer? Well, if you're more interested in story, you're going to like the meta orgs better than that.
So this may be a lost opportunity, that the most important thing that maybe Cannon Fire and Greyhawk Online should be storing is this meta org, all the meta orgs, because they have history. They have the entire history of the organizations. So, I mean, this may be priceless information, these for meta orgs, to collect them for all the regions, because there's a lot of great detail that's been written up here. And I'm assuming these aren't published anywhere else.
No, I've been trying to find them from other regions, and I'm getting crickets when I ask. Thank
you, Jose.
Hopefully, I sent you ours already.
Yeah.
These
yeah.
these I feel like fall into the legal loophole where they can be shared because they are campaign created items and they
And
were freely distributed for 8 years. So there's bazillions of copies out there. There's no way Wizards of the Coast could ever stop people from sharing these. They don't contain
there's no stat blocks. There's
there's no
Yeah, it's
stories
just-
in them. Like, they might mention Kranzer or someone from Zeef who's an NPC from the Gazetteer, right? But it's not a story. It's not a game. It's just it's kind of an academic thing at this point. So that's why I posted the Bandit Kingdoms meta campaign book from 596, year 6, into the Legends and Lore channel on the Greyhawk Online Discord server.
Okay.
I got that right. So everyone can go grab that and take a look and see. That's just kind of the background info. And then Jay has the PDFs, which are like what John's here is from Zeif, which actually contains the game mechanic details.
rank 2. Wow. I mean, this is so. In 1E, in old school, you made up a group, but you didn't have set rules for it, right? And then 1E, 2E, and then in 3E, because you are trying to tie this into how you get those really unique prestige classes into Greyhawk, right? So I'm saying Arcane Archer's one. There's got to be others. Duelist is probably another one, I imagine, and I bet you the Knights of the Holy Shielding had one. You know, it's a great. I can understand the level of detail, and there's probably hundreds of these, right?
Yeah, I mean, how many do we have? Multiply that by all the other regions who existed for longer than we did. So they probably have more, I would assume.
Okay.
A lot of them would anyways.
5 ranks.
There were also
like
meta
25 in the
orgs.
BK at least.
Yeah, there were we had meta regional meta orgs were a possibility in the campaign as well, and some of them existed, but they never ended up being developed very much, which to me was always unfortunate because I think some of the biggest organizations in the Greyhawk setting spanned multiple regions, and so in order for people to be a part of them, there had to be a certain amount of work done to create a meta org for them that was available to more than one region. We regional administrators, the triads, were not allowed to work with those ones, which is why you don't see in Zeef the stronghold of the Mokalad Consortium. We don't have a Mokalad Consortium meta org that you can join. We have the Church of Mokul, which has ties to it. We talk about the Mokalad Consortium, but there's not actually, and you would think that it would be the biggest thing. It's the thing you would mention first about Zeef is, the Mokalad Consortium basically runs out of there, and that would be an ideal meta org. And players are always talking about, I'd love to make my character a member of the Mokalad Consortium. I'm like, well, you can say you are. You can be a cleric in the Church of Mokul, and you can join our Mokalad church meta org, but the Mokalad Consortium is basically an NPC guild, and there are tons of other ones like it. I'm not sure if the Knights of the Holy Shielding became a meta org, but of course all the stuff, all the really big things, the biggest things in the Greyhawk setting that people could join spanned multiple regions, and so they wouldn't have been developed this way.
Right, and they would have been a good tool for introducing characters to the meta regional adventure plot lines too, or to use as introductory plot hooks. And I kept pushing for that, the Circle and the Powers That Be and Chris Tulloch, and I'm like, the Old Faith, the Druids of the Old Faith needs to be a campaign-wide meta org, and it can be meta regional for its different benefits or whatever. And they just didn't have the time or the vision to do that. Churches of Palor and Foltus, etc. People fighting IUs in the Shieldlands and Furiundi and High Folk and Perrinland and the BK. There should have been like a we don't care about anything else other than fighting IUs meta org, and it just never went that route. And the document, Jay, you were looking at earlier, the rules of making meta orgs, in there says meta regions can have 4 meta orgs, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure
Wow.
how many actually ever got created. And I'm sure I'm probably forgetting one.
Because
Yeah,
Statler asked, could players in the region create their own meta orgs and submit it for approval? I think the answer to that's yes, right?
well, yeah, the
Yeah.
Triad
Yeah.
was always looking
Exactly
for
what we did.
anyone dumb enough to have that kind of energy would get roped into working for
Mhm.
region in some way, shape, or form. That's how I got sucked in because I really liked the Fan Larenchan Sylvan Elves of the Fell Reef Forest. It's a canon organization from I Use the Evil. I had created this elf character for my first PC. I said, well, she's from the Fell Reef. I want her to have a family. Oh, look, here in I Use the Evil, the Fan Larenchan Sylvan Elves. And I guess either the BK had already created the meta org or I bugged them a lot. I forget this 2003. And eventually Mike Garris, who was a Triad member well before me, got tired of me and just said, you're in charge of that. You know, you do it. I'm sick of hearing about it. So I did.
Jose
I
says,
became a
yeah.
meta org coordinator.
in addition to the other stuff.
Right. And then I went on to create a Yahoo group for the meta org because one of the things in Living Greyhawk was it was also a social campaign. Using the Yahoo groups, people could stay in touch. And the Triad members, like John and I, have no idea how many people ever joined any particular meta org because it was just a paper trail. It happened at a table. They didn't have to email us. They didn't have to pay us. They didn't have to buy anything. So someone could come up to me and be like, oh, my character's a member of the Fan Manager and Sylvan Elves. I'd be like, okay, cool. I had no idea, but cool. Well, I created a Yahoo group and said, hey, feel free to join. And people did so that they would do in-character discussions. You know, it didn't matter, but it was fun. And you could just kind of make friends or just talk or whatever, you know. I did that for the Church of Kellen. I created what I called the Church of Swords.
No, Kellenen,
Yahoo
really?
group. I know, go figure.
You almost have one in my campaign with your
I'm
characters.
working on it.
Yeah. So Jose says that Knights of the Watch were definitely a meta org that's sprawled across the others, and that makes total sense.
Yeah, right from the start, they were one of the first ones that
Okay.
anyone knew about.
Yeah, very, very cool. So here's one of my stupid questions I got to ask now. It says right here, Vasa eunuchs were most often fully castrated while members were only partially castrated. Okay. What's the difference? Am I
You want to know the difference?
Yeah, yeah. I think I know, but oh my God.
Yeah, you know, it's about the balls of the stick.
Oh my gosh!
Or
Wow.
both. Or yeah, I guess.
Wow!
The twigs and berries.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Wow!
Yeah.
Oh, just a crazy, crazy fun thing there. So, Casey, we have. Let me get up this. So, tell me. I got your folder here. I got both your folders. I'm going to be bouncing between both.
Okay.
So, what do we got
Well,
here? Give me one. You
yeah.
want me to pop up here?
No, I don't know. Let's see. What out there jumps out to you? I'm just gonna kind of read to the audience, and Jay, you can also pick one. Army of the Warfields, Brotherhood of the Sundered Axe,
Here.
Circle of Crimson Stone. What do you got there?
Halloran Fencing Academy.
The Halloran Fencing Academy was actually created by me, by
Yeah.
my character,
Oh,
before I was a Triad member, because I was obsessed with Kellenen, right? So my character bought a plot of land in the city of Halorn, and I told the Triad, I
really
am
picked it.
opening up a fencing academy. How do I make this a meta org? And we looked up the rules and we submitted it, and we came up with the Halorn Fencing Academy, which is run by my now obviously retired and living Greyhawk PC, an elven warrior who was dedicated to Kellen. Yes, I know it's a little bit odd, but that's the way I went.
So, is she the mistress of the academy?
Yes, she is the mistress of the academy.
Okay.
And she was a PC who then I off-screen retired because I became a Triad member and I never got to play any.
Okay.
That record is what a player would get when their character joined the organization. Because as we've shown in previous episodes, Living Greyhawk had a paper trail. It was called
Right.
Living Accounting at times.
Yeah.
And you can see why. And so you can see that there were benefits to joining this organization. You could purchase divine spells of up to 4th level from a 7th level cleric of Kellenen while in Halorn. That's a big deal in Living Greyhawk and the Bandit Kingdoms. You couldn't just go and assume you found a cleric to get raised dead in Living Greyhawk. You had to have a access or a rules item, or someone in your party had to be 9th level and be able to do it. And then you scroll down and you see the access gained from membership that you're featuring there. You could take a feat called Foe Specialist. That was from the Miniatures Handbook, 3rd edition book. You know, that some regions might not ever have allowed that. Racial substitution levels, et cetera, et cetera. You probably renown bonus to leadership. I loved giving a renown bonus to leadership because not enough PCs, in my opinion, were taking leadership. It really helped high-level tables when they only had 4 players. You could bring a cohort. And so a higher renown bonus means a better cohort for those tables. And I thought it was a cool role-playing thing too, to have a better cohort.
Naturally, that's how many TUs did this one cost?
If we scroll up and look to the right.
2 to 5 TUs, 200.
And it explains why somewhere on the document it'll say if you do 2 TUs, it's this. If you do 5 TUs, it's this. It's probably down in the purple section or something like that.
Yeah, for every
where the skill
bonus rises by 1 for every additional TU annually. The training school to a maximum of 4. There you go.
And you can see these circumstance bonuses to these skills. These were combat skills in 3rd edition. Balance. If you're a tumbler, the tumble checks was huge. My character was always tumbling around monsters to avoid attacks of opportunity. So getting bonuses to tumble was massive in 3rd edition.
So this is what I'm going to propose, Casey. We have two Kellenin characters of yours in my campaign, Garn and Yisak. We have a couple duelists that are Kellenin, and maybe there should be a Brotherhood of Kellenin or something, Brotherhood of the Sword or something, in my because to link them all together. You know
I thought you might already have something like that.
Well,
because you talk about
not specifically that, but there's venturing guilds and stuff like that. But I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, what I call the Kellenites is the Church of Fools. That's the term I use for them, and I think Yisak as a duelist is someone who's a lay worshiper, right? He can't cast spells. He tosses a silver piece into the donational bucket, every once in a while. Garn is an actual cleric who's going around telling people the way of the sword, the Tao of the sword, so to speak. So yeah, I think that'd be a really cool idea.
I mean,
is Jay low-key telling you to retire Garn?
No. So a little quick side story. Casey's all upset because he's not playing Garn tomorrow night. So if everyone knows, tomorrow night I have a very special Thursday night event with a bunch of special guests playing in a game tomorrow night, including Mike Disney, Time Lord's wife, Tea Time with Taryn, Casey Brown, John from Blue Box, a couple of my players. And I was like, there's 4 clerics already. I'm like, Casey, you're not playing Garn. There's 4 clerics already. Play the duelist Yisak. The problem is both Garn and Time Lord's wife they'll go up after this one if they survive it. And they'll both be 8th and Garn will be 7th.
Yeah, which makes me a little mad, by the way. Garn started before Time Lord's wife's character.
Yeah, I know. It's just the way it fell. That's all.
It did. That's all right.
Ask for a mini mission.
He's been trying that. That's a Timism. That's once
I need a one-on-one session, Jay.
Yeah, and see, that's why I have this emote, the no just no emote, and there's 3 no just no's.
I tried to get Garn's got like 10,000 gold pieces, and I said Garn wants to create a new spell, a new clerical spell of 4th level. And Jay's like, what is it? And I told him it's Summon Garn 1. He writes it on a scroll. He gives it to Anna. Anna gives it to a cleric, and whenever there's an adventure where they're in deep trouble, and they just bust out the scroll, and someone gives me a call, and Garn and I show up for the fight.
Yeah, no.
Cheap teleport.
Yeah, no.
So Garn can show up without armor. Could be the middle of the night.
Yeah. No. So yes, Garn the A team. Exactly, Tim. So Tim hasn't told me if he's playing tomorrow night or not. So I got that wrench thrown into me too. So Anna, Mike, you two have both been quiet on this. Comments or questions?
I'm learning.
I'm learning too. I'm learning. This is great.
This was meta org. I thought it was something that was how they organized the living campaign. I didn't realize it had something to do with the campaign itself. I thought it was not an in-game thing at all. So I was like, oh, this is going to be, we have to suffer through 2 hours and talking about no one will like it. But this is super interesting. interesting.
Yeah,
so
this
thank
is a
you.
great discussion.
Yeah.
So,
hmm
Tim,
And
I know you're on
went
call.
Greyhawk.
I know you're on call, Tim. I'm
Oh,
just busting. You and Bill, I don't know if we're playing until last second or not. I understand. So, oh, tomorrow it'll be fun. So, okay, let's bounce back. I'm really interested in some of these because I love to just go in, and this is really lost lore, right? For Greyhawk, because
Sure.
it's not in this book, right? They're not
Right.
in this book. They're in. Are some in the
Not that
Gazetteer?
one.
Are some of them in the Gazetteers? I mean, the journals.
They're hinted at, right? So, and I use
Okay.
the evil, like maybe it talks about um, Nayrolites in Halorn, or maybe that's somewhere in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. Go ahead, Jay. Just throw up the Death Cultists, because this is a fun evil one
Sure.
that we did in the Band of Kingdoms.
Okay.
And I'll pull up my copy so I can follow
This one?
along. Yes. So as you see, right off the bat, boom, Nayrol, holy symbol at the top of the sheet. This is a meta org that wizards could join, and it was basically for necromancers in the Band of Kingdom, because you didn't have to be evil to worship, Nayrol, right? You couldn't be a cleric of Nayrol in the canon. You could give lip service to Nayrol. So as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of ranks over on the upper right, and it has, you can't be of good alignment. You must be able to cast first level spells. Kobolds were allowed to join. Yeah, there were a few kobolds. We made it where they could join.
That's all right.
You had to have certain game things that had happened to you, either the Damned by the Reaper or the Hand of the Reaper. These were adventure token-y things you might have collected with your character. Worship a deity with the death or repose domains. Those are 3rd edition domains. So that could also probably be Ouija or Ouijas as well, if I think about it.
Okay. So, and then you have your access gain.
And then you see the costs. And then as you are in this organization with your character, you can go up in rank. And then you scroll down and there's all the access you gain. You gain access to a library of core spells. So that your character didn't have to do where's a wizard for me to find spells from? You just do that off screen. You have access to a library.
That's good. I like that.
Right.
I like that.
And other things that get deeper into 3rd edition. But influence points was a role-playing thing. So if you ran into the Death Cultist during an adventure, you got to say, like, by the way, I'm one of you guys. Don't kill me, kind of thing. And sometimes during an adventure, the Death Cultist would specifically be looking for members and would have you do something that maybe the rest of the party didn't want you to do. And it wasn't just the Death Cultist. Every meta org had its own reason for existing, right? In game, the Fan Lancashire Elves are trying to survive and fight IUs. The Death Cultists are in Halorn and they're trying to do crazy Horn Society stuff. Not all the members even knew that, but they were pawns of the Horn Society, basically.
Well, I'm glad to see that you have the Horn Society like intertwined in there a little bit.
Oh, it's deeply buried in there. But
I like
the Horn
it.
Society was running.
Anna loves that. I know.
Yeah.
That's great.
Here, Horn Society,
I
I'm like
roll into the Horn
instantly.
Society in my own
Mhm.
version of Greyhawk.
I
I know that the whole devil worshipping and stuff, but there's also the canon references.
Warduke, Jose says. So,
Right?
Oh.
yeah.
Mhm.
Very cool.
And someone was talking in the chat about meta orgs being mostly purely role playing. They were, but they were also very mechanical oriented. As
that's
you
what
can
3.5
see,
was. 3.5
access.
was.
Yeah, I mean, and Jay and Tim have seen how I approach character building in AD&D. I'm like, what do I want the character to do? Now I'm going to build towards that, and then I'm going to build my background in role playing so that it makes sense for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I do the opposite thing to that. As you heard when I talked about the ranger that I made, I'm like, okay, I want to make a character that's going to be in one of these meta orgs. Stalwart Pines sounds good, so I'll make a ranger. What is it going to give me? What are my options? Okay, well, I'll set up this character, even if it's not the coolest and best way to do it, to get what's good in this organization. That was my way to do it. I think the other thing that was very cool about the meta orgs is that they were mentioned in the adventures. So our writers would be told, Well, if you can include some stuff about the meta orgs, do it. That mainly it was sort of a carte blanche thing. We wouldn't say, you have to include this meta org or that meta org. We just say, well, we'd like you to include stuff for the meta orgs. So sometimes the adventure at the beginning would say, note which of your characters are in your players have characters in these meta orgs, and it will affect the adventure in these ways. So sometimes it'll give, there'll be a, encounter 5B. This will only happen if there's a member of the Arcane Sanctum in the group. And this guy approaches you saying, I am a member of the Arcane Sanctum as you are. Here is your secret mission for today. Try and finish this as well as the regular adventure. And if you do, some cool thing will happen, or you'll get some, you'll get something that will advance you in the meta org later, or you'll just get some special magic item or what have you. But they would all be related. And, I was always, when I was running these games, I was always like, oh, I hope someone is in this meta org because this is really cool. And I think as a DM for the campaign, it made it a lot of fun to have the meta orgs because you never knew what kind of characters you were going to get at your table. So you always had to ask. And you'd be like, okay, does anybody belong to any meta orgs? And you at the very beginning, and and you'd get the list. Oh, I'm in this. I have a background of ran away from the harem and stuff like that. And ran away from the harem. Okay, well, I'll roll your percentage chance to get caught while you're in this city, and stuff like that.
Right.
It was super fun, and it was also, it gave extra points for subplots to our writers. And a lot of our writers were really keen on the meta orgs, so that I think it inspired them to write better adventures.
I agree, and they helped, as you mentioned, flesh things out. But we were creating what were called introductory adventures in the Bandit Kingdoms. The first level adventures, we were allowed to do a few extra first level adventures, all the regions, but we called them meta missions. They were tied specifically to a meta org, so it would be like your first level shmup. This meta org needs 5 adventures to go and do a thing for it. It was designed to encourage people new to live in Greyhawk, or old players who were making, their 3rd, 4th, or 5th character have some involvement in a meta org that maybe they'd never been involved with before. But in the Bandit Kingdoms, when we asked John, like, oh, what meta orgs are your characters in? We'd be writing it down because the Church of IUs would specifically be trying to kill members of various meta orgs. So in the adventure, the author would write, give the Iusian cleric a perception check. If he recognizes a member of any of these orgs, he targets them first with his offensive spells and things of that nature. And then we actually had a mechanic called Wanted by the Church of Ius, Jay, which is actually a sheet you can pull up there.
Sure.
But basically, since most of our adventures were against Ius, we needed a mechanic to keep track of who were the biggest pains in the ass for Ius.
All right, so
Descent,
which one? There's 5 of them in here. Which one do you want?
So there were 5 levels.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you could pick any of those.
All right, we'll just do Dissenter. So there's 5 levels of Wanted by the Church of Ius, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, Dissenter was probably one of the lower ones. I'm actually trying to find my copy here, but so this was a very involved, complicated system of points that involved things you did in adventures would give you points. And whenever your points threshold reached a certain point, you automatically joined this meta org, or at least you should have. Did we have players that just ignored it and said to hell with that? Sure. But if you really wanted to be immersed in the Bandit Kingdoms, you embraced your wanted status. And we used to have people just bragging about how wanted their PCs were. So we would try and kill those PCs whenever we DM'd for them.
I would make wanted posters of them.
Well, that was one of the things. There were wanted posters in the game.
Here's
Absolutely.
Seditionist.
So joining a meta organization could be very different depending on. So some of them you would simply this line. If you were notorious enough or against IUs enough, you would get. It was kind of an automatic thing that you became a member of it. But were some of them something that you had to audition for during sessions or play, or was it that more formality in downtime?
We had in our very first adventure for Zeef, we had the opportunity to take your place in the Sultan's harem.
Uh-huh.
So if you were a male character, that might have meant an operation.
Mhm.
But there was a specific meta org that we were introducing at that time.
Loyalty to the Sultan, is that the
Loyalty to the Sultan, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you could actually, basically the gist of it was you talk to the Sultan, he teases you a little bit about maybe having to join the harem as a normal harem member, which basically means you don't get to leave the palace. But he says, it's actually, I find you are serving me better outside. So
Mhm.
instead of becoming a eunuch or becoming a member of the physical harem, you're going to participate in this ritual that happens every year, and a whole bunch of people do it. They get together to show how important the Sultan is to them, and they get branded. So you can show this off and say, yeah, I'm loyal to the Sultan. Check this out. I got this humongous brand on my chest or wherever it was. Can't remember offhand. But yeah, and so you would get this, you get a certificate for it, and people would treat you differently in later adventures because of it.
Wow. If the
But
brand
if you
is removed by
if you
scarring.
changed loyalties, there's a section about that too.
Yeah.
It's not so good for you.
Cool.
The Sultan isn't a merciful dude.
Jay, just for fun, if we could just revisit the IU's one real quick, John, before we move on.
Yeah. I'm
pull
fine.
up the
I got
last
it.
one.
So we were about here, seditionist. I got it.
Pull up an enemy, the final stage.
I thought the seditionist was worst.
That was the second to last.
All right, hold on one sec.
Because I just want to go through how bonkers this thing was.
Yeah, please.
And how involved the players were. When you reached enemy of the state wanted by the Church of IUs, the PC is one of the most wanted figures in the Empire. No expense is spared to kill the PC. The bounty on the PC is a small fiefdom and barony granted by the Church of IUs in the Bandit Kingdom for the PC destruction. So another character could kill. Player versus player wasn't legal, right? But another character could decide to say, you know what, I'm going to retire my character. I'm going to tell the bad guys, hey, this guy's wanted by you. He's in disguise. And then if the bad guys killed that PC, then that other PC might retire, and the Iusians would keep their word and give them a small little barony out in the middle of nowhere. The Iusians got bonuses on spot checks to recognize the PC, whether or not they were disguised. Diplomacy checks were penalized. And if the thing is, if like all your other friends, all your other meta orgs would desert you because you were now too dangerous to know. So if you were in the Bandits of the Green Keep, they kicked you out. You've been making too much noise, rattling IU's cage, bringing too much heat, right? Too much is the vernacular. But the benefits for that were, if you died, your remains were automatically considered recovered if you died inside the Bandit Kingdoms because you were a hero. So some group would off-screen go and get your body back somehow to bring you back. And this effect could override event text from an adventure.
Wow.
So if something said, you got killed out in the middle of nowhere and you're going to get eaten by the crows, you would just bring this thing up and say, like, nope, someone finds my dead body.
So here's the deal. How many were members of this enemy at the end?
We'll never know because not everyone told us. But a few people got to this level before the end of the campaign, and we tried to kill their characters every chance we did, or that we got.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we ran a table and someone said, oh, my character's enemy of the state or seditionist or whatever, I'm thinking, all right, are there any Iusians in this adventure?
So that they have
anyway,
to tell...
so that's just how bonkers it got.
Yeah, it looks crazy. Okay. Wow. So loyalty to the Sultan is cool because it looks like it tells you how to become a loyalist and all the abilities you get and all. But you're right, John. You don't want to change. You don't want to change out, man. You may own property in the Sultanate of Zif as per Zif Kasaba Kermak document.
Right. Yeah, that was the town project. and it had a different name in different places. Ours, we translated into Turkish like we did everything, and so that's why it's called the Salak.
Wow.
It was a project whereby your character could own a house or a business in a town. So we made these little towns up that are not in canon. We made up new little towns, just tiny villages somewhere. And there was one, and I think I mentioned these last time when I was on for Zeef, but we had one for people who lived in Vancouver, one for people who lived in Calgary, one for people who lived in Edmonton. They each community had their own little town in the real world, and that was sort of meta-org stuff. And we had ties in with the meta-org documents.
That's cool.
And Victoria was making one, but they never actually got their stuff finished off before the campaign ended.
It's neat. It's really, I mean, the detail on that is just amazing. That
and that's what, 1 page, John? 2 pages there?
I think it's 2 pages, that one.
Yeah,
it's
it just
almost 3.
that looks amazing.
Maybe it's 3.
We put the fluff, what I call the fluff, into our main book, and that's what this looks like. But you also put the rules mechanics.
Right.
It looks like here. Whereas we early on in the campaign, they had both the fluff and the rules mechanics in the book, the Bandit Kingdoms Meta Campaign Guidebook. And then they went to the adventure record system. So I'm sure Zeif had the adventure records for once you join this, right?
Yeah, they were always separate documents for us. We didn't have one overarching meta-org document that had all the stuff in it.
Okay.
Each one was its own separate document. They were all works in progress for us. Some of them came out just before the campaign ended. I still have some of the Word documents from meta-orgs that never actually got published in their final form. So no one ever joined them, but some people put a lot of work into them. They never got approved or whatever.
Right.
And we talked about them. It was one of the things that was almost saddest about it was we knew some meta-orgs that we wanted to have, and we were looking for writers for them right from the start. And so when we had our first adventures written, when we had our call to writers for our first adventure, we said, put stuff in for people who are involved in these meta-orgs. They don't exist right now, but we're going to make them, and people are going to be able to play these mods for more than just this year. So by the time the meta-orgs are written, maybe people will play these and they'll get these things. What was it called now? The Order of Qualish. We had stuff about it in our very first adventure. Never finished that one. You could never join the Order of Qualish. I have the certs for it. They never got made into PDFs. They're just all Word documents. It had 7 levels. It was going to be this huge sprawling thing. But the guy who wrote it, I think it just, it got too big for him, and it never got finished. And it's too bad, because that's another one of the really key cool. This is a cool thing about Zeef, is that Qualish lived there 500 years ago, and so we threw it into our adventures a little bit. Really wanted to have that meta-org, but didn't end up happening.
You have a lot of like these deity certs, so churches, and I just pulled up Zewokin because I wasn't really familiar with Zewokin until Expeditions to the Ruins of Greyhawk too much. Like he's like almost like the deity of monks, right? And
we had cool tie-ins with our church meta-orgs and some of our other meta-orgs as well.
Okay.
Zewokin was a lot to do with monks, so it was tied in with the monastery background, I think. And yeah, we had the trade thing with Mokol. We had the Church of Zanye is really tied in with a meta-org that's called the Dusklash, that was something that was not from canon. It was just a couple of our players really liked it. One of them was Chris, who became a triad with us. Chris and Jason made up the Dusklash. And so your point, time units that you spent towards one also counted towards the other if you were in both of them, and stuff like that. They had tie-ins between the meta-orgs, and some meta-orgs didn't like each other. So you would have like a reaction. You have a -2 to diplomacy with people from this church or from the Arcane Sanctum or whatever because you're in this meta org. So there are kind of bonuses and penalties because of the relationships with these different meta orgs. So they happen, and players would play them out. You know, when a player who was in the Church of Zanye, I was at the same table with a player who is in the Church of Mokul. Well, they don't get along because Zanye is the Church of Zanye was involved in smuggling, and Mokul, the Church of Mokul was all about fair trade, at least for the rich.
Okay.
So they didn't get along, and if they were at the same table, they would talk about it, and it'd be fun, friendly banter for the most part. I never saw them ever come to blows.
No, it's cool to have that tension between organizations. So this lay member, that means you're a worshiper only. You're not a cleric. Is that what that?
Yeah, and you can be pretty much any class as long as your alignment doesn't clash with it.
Right. Okay.
Usually,
It tells you
that's the
over
first level, and then you could advance. Most of the time, you had to be a cleric to go to the highest levels. But for example, Zuoken, a monk could go pretty much all the way in Zuoken. It would tell you what you needed to do. Is usually either cast this level of spell or have these class abilities.
Right. Disciple of Balance. I see 4 years is Disciple of Balance, which I'm assuming is monk there, and yeah, it tells you what feats and a retirement of the character, advancement to higher ranks.
Yeah, eventually,
Ooh.
if you become the leader of the church, you don't get to go on adventures anymore.
You're busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it probably cost a lot of TUs by the time you got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah, it usually
you know,
costs more as you go along, and often tithing a bit heavier too. Our church organizations usually came with a 5% tithe, but the tithe might go up as you got higher in rank.
Okay.
But if someone went super high in their org and reached out to us and said, "Hey, I'm going to retire my PC because he's now head of the Clan Fairlantian Elves, whatever," then maybe we might write that guy or girl, that PC, into an adventure. It happened super often. No. Did it happen once?
Which
or
one did you
5
say?
times?
Elf Oaken Cops?
Maybe. Yeah. Just pull it up. I'll follow along with you.
There you go. Elf Oaken Cops. Wanted. Acolytes and Keepers of the Forest receive an insurgent level. Wanted by the Church of Ea's point, just by joining.
Yeah, because Iusians were hunting the elves in the Felry Forest.
Okay.
And that's from I Use the Evil, right? So just fighting them. This would be a member of Clan Fairlantian, straight out of I Use the Evil. And this would be, they had a branch for clerics, they had a branch for like rangers, and they had a branch for fighter wizard types.
Right.
Each with their own different access and costs and things of that nature. Which one did you pull up?
Oaken Corpse. Yeah, the found.
So that's probably like the druids, the wood elf druids.
Okay.
One.
It
it's
says,
taking me a second to follow.
It says,
along.
due to the PC's influence within the clan, elves outside the Felreave and any members of Fort Hendricks and Scorn respect the PC. So,
elves weren't always liked in the Bandit Kingdoms, especially crazy wood elves from the Fairlantian. And we know that a whole bunch of Rayhue humans went into the Felreave from I Use the Evil, and they established Fort Hendricks and Fort Scorn to fight Iuse because they got driven from the Rayhue lands.
Okay, well, I think they're in here too, aren't they?
They are. There is a meta org for those Rayhue humans, which is where to go.
What's the name of it?
I
know I saw them.
Hendricks AR and Hendricks Arcane AR. So in I Use the Evil, the Rayhue humans who fled to the Felreave have some crazy powerful, like 15th level conjurer.
Right.
Which in AD&D and I Use the Evil is ridiculous. I mean, the Bone Hearts were like 12th, 13th, and 15th levels.
Yep.
So you've got one guy in canon hanging out in the Felreave Forest who can do, 7th level, 8th level spells. It's bonkers. So I figured, he's probably training other people.
Maybe of any race except halfling or half-orc. No halflings, sorry.
I forget exactly why I made that.
Because you don't allow halfling wizards.
No, that's not. So is this the arcane one or is this the regular one?
The regular one.
The regular
and they're all
one
gone again, right?
Yeah, they're all gone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah, in this organization, Fort Hendricks and Scorn, basically was dedicated to fighting IUs. And you'll notice there were just some regular items you could gain access to. The various splat books made mundane gear available that wasn't in the player's handbook. Insect netting, quiver scabbards, silent shoes, thunder arrows, all these weird things from Complete Warrior, Complete Arcane, whatever the rest of those books are. I forget, Masters of the Wild or whatever. Fur clothing. So these are things if you wanted to dress up your PC, I've got fur clothing. Well, this is an official thing that would allow you to buy fur clothing, because in the player's handbook, oddly enough, you can't. Then they gained access to weapons, influence points with the elves. They gained access to a prestige class called the Skull Clan Hunter, Jay, which you have in your game as the Undead Hunter, right?
Well, yeah, as a class in itself, not as
Right.
an organization, but a class. Yeah.
Well, in third edition, Skull Clan Hunter was a prestige class for thieves devoted to fighting undead. Because in third edition, sneak attack didn't work on undead.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Wow. The level of depth is, I'm surprised, just by looking at all this, how far into this you went. Mike, you've been quiet now. You got any specific questions?
Question wise, no. I was on Greyhawk Online, and they have the Tusmet, Living Greyhawk Tusmet on there, and there's a very brief document on like a list of their meta orgs, but no certificates, I think. And so I was just kind of going through some of those as well. Those would have been interesting to have back in the day.
Yeah. Patrick asked, when does Gygax end and Living Greyhawk begin? You're missing all of Sargent in between there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
And
missing an
Patrick,
entire era.
Living Greyhawk, as we heard from the other shows, started before Living Greyhawk actually started. They had that big thing, crazy battle in Joff. But Living Greyhawk was announced, at Winter Fantasy 2000 and started at Gen Con 2000. But the first campaign year was 591 in 2001. So they had events in the year 2000, but the campaign started in 2001.
Because you
And
got
it is right, and this was the Bible.
Yeah, and you're missing 15. When did Gary leave? 85.
Yeah, something like that. 85.
You're missing
80.
15 years of Sergeant in between that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I Use the Evil was our Bible in the Vandeking.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I Use the Evil's 89 or something like that, 89 in that era.
Not even sure it's that old.
I got it right here. What am I doing?
I don't have a hard cap.
By the way, Carlos, $25 gift certificate to CSL Entertainment tonight is the giveaway, and you can always get this or something else. Look at that, Casey, man. You're getting quick. So, lightning quick. And tomorrow night is Reaper Miniatures.
Yeah, Jose said they did their first thing in '99. Now, they didn't get to use those
that was
characters.
session -1,
Living
right?
Greyhawk.
That was the -1 session.
Yeah, that's like year -2, actually. It was in '99.
Yeah, I'm
Or -1, whatever. There was a year 0, there was a year -1, we've learned.
I got so many pieces of stuff here. All right, so
And
my
we can.
coverless Eye of the Evil, Eyes Evil's 93.
He told you it wasn't that early.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah, 93. Marklands is what, same? 93. My times all blur together.
Yep.
When was From the Ashes?
91, I think,
Okay.
or
It all
1991.
merges. It all 41 years blurs together with me. Pretty sweaty palms. That's funny.
So if we had 25 and Joff had 100, we'd always heard in the Bandit Kingdoms that the people in Joff were nuts. We're super into role playing. Look, we've had
92.
Eric Menge and crew on
92,
the
okay.
show,
Okay.
and Jose.
Yep.
We know they're bonkers role playing. So now I'm not surprised that they went that crazy with their meta orders. John, how many do you think you guys ended up with?
I know exactly how many. We had basically 7 full meta orgs, not counting the backgrounds, and including all the religious ones as one.
Okay.
We had 7.
Okay. You got more here in this folder that you gave me than 7.
Yeah, there's different certs. there's more certs than there are meta orgs because there's certs for different levels
Okay.
of the meta orgs,
There's like
and each religion has its own different
Different
cert.
path.
because you
Yeah.
got like the Royal Navy of Zeef.
Right.
Yeah, that was a full meta org. We had
Okay.
the Spahis of Zeef, which is another meta org. That was the Knights. You had the Urazuris,
There
which
you
was
go.
the half orc guard, Sultan's guard. Then you had the Arcane Sanctum, which was mostly wizards, but even clerics could join it. And we had the Baklunish Pantheon, which basically had a meta org for each, was a meta org for each Baklunish deity. And then you had the Imperial Harem wasn't really a meta org so much as a background. It didn't have ranks you could go through. You were in it or you weren't. Loyalty to the Sultan was the same thing. You're in it or you aren't. It was sort of a binary thing. So
Okay.
I don't really count those ones.
Okay.
And then yeah, Zeef Kasaba Kermak was the town project. It was kind of meta orgy, but not exactly.
Well, let's
the
talk
same.
about that real quick, Don, because I think that's a good segue into the town project.
Yeah,
We
please.
talked about with Vernon from Verbabong. Verbabong. You guys, John, did you guys use the Verbabong template?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Heavily
the meta
modified.
orgs created a system where eventually we all realized, wait, we now have a mechanic in place for PCs to buy land and to own real property, real estate, which when you started living Greyhawk, you know, the player's handbook, did it have prices for a house? It had prices for boats, right? But I don't recall it having prices for house.
We know it
I
had
want to buy a
prices.
bar. How much does that cost?
We know it
in
had
the third
prices
edition
for
player's
flour
handbook?
and nails and doors, right, Casey?
Well, of course it did. Chickens.
And chickens.
Yeah, all that stuff was in the player's handbook. But Verbabonk came up with a system where PCs could build towns and build houses. And we made that in the Bandit Kingdom. It sound like Don did in Zeif. An extension of the meta orgs. A meta org might give you access to buy land or to buy a house. And so we created certs. And we could talk about that on a whole separate show if we get Vernon back on as well. But how do you own land in Living Greyhawk? It helps invest your character. It's not just a tune as the video gamers all their PCs. It's your character. They have a place to live. They have a place to defend and care about.
Okay. So
Yeah, in Zeef we did a thing like we really wanted support for these for the town project. So we really proselytized for it, and we told them in the first year, which for us was 596 CY. We told them, hey, if you guys can, if your city can build a town project by the end of the year, we will make an adventure in your town for next year's for next year, and we did that. So we ended up having only 3 completed town projects, and we wanted 4. So we had one that was sort of half baked by the end of the year. We still made the adventure, but the town project never really finished. But we had a sort of we had a 4-part story arc for each year. For the first year, 4-part story arc for the second year, and we were meant to have one for the third year, but we kind of just decided to finish all our major arcs instead. So we had like a 3-year arc, a 2-year arc, and then a single year arc for each year, and then a few little special one-offs. But yeah, we made that promise, and we got overwhelming support from Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. We got those ones all done. People did an astounding amount of work. They mapped out their buildings for us. They told us who owned the businesses, what the local resources were, all that stuff. They did that for us. It was all subject to approval, but it was mainly rubber stamped. They did a great job, and we didn't have to do much editing on it once they were done. And then we're like, okay, let's get some authors from those cities and let them write an adventure there. But
cool.
We're going to tie them together. There is going to be a tie-in that we want them to use, and we actually made it sort of a tie-in from our first arc. So one of the adventures in our first arc, there's a big part of it is this auction. The players all go to an auction, and the adventure is to buy a certain thing for a disgraced Spahi to get his family back on track or whatever. To redeem him, he has to get back this thing that was lost in battle. but they're auctioning it off because he's a poor knight. But at the same time, when they're going to the auction, there's all these other things that they could buy, and they don't know if it's any good or what it is. So people just, some people said, well, I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to buy it. But some people bought them. And then in the second year, each of these towns had a plot hook that was based on one of the things that you could buy that meant nothing in the first year of the campaign. But if you played the same character in the second year of the campaign, if you had bought the item, something cool would happen. And it was pretty rare. For some of them, people just didn't buy them, so it didn't come up. But the adventures were still good on their own. But if you had this cool thing from the first year in that one auction, it opened up a whole new side of the adventure. You learned some more history and lore, and you'd get a player handout that had a whole bunch of cool stuff on it, and you would actually upgrade your item you basically unlocked its power, and it became a magical item that was pretty cool and you could use and had a cool history.
And John touched on something there that was really cool in that it was a living campaign, right? The whole theory behind Living Greyhawk was that players would be able to shape the world of Greyhawk. Characters, PCs, would be able to shape the Flaness. And it's not, I'm not bashing Pathfinder Society. I played it, but it's not a living campaign. It's fun, but it's not living, at least when I was playing it. If you look on Anna's map, Jay, in the Bandit Kingdoms, Anna has added towns to her map because myself and others have shared information, and she went through the Living Greyhawk adventures.
All of them. I mean, look at Verbobach. The Verbobach area is over, too much, right?
And many of those places were created by players. If we looked in the Bandit Kingdoms closely enough, we would see a town called Mercy's Bluff. Mercy's Bluff is the home of Grandpa Gonigan, an NPC that the Gonigan halfling players created.
All right, give me a second.
That location, Mercy's Bluff, shows up in a Bandit Kingdoms adventure just because players in the Bandit Kingdoms had kind of given us enough detail to go off of.
Let's try this.
The halfling village. It was in the Duchy,
cool.
Or not the Duchy of Arconsumed, where the Duke, what's his face? Oh my God, how am I forgetting this?
What's the name of it?
Go into the Arconsumed. Look around there between Brehu and Arconsumed.
North. North.
You got it, Anna?
Yeah, well, it's a bit more north.
Is it over by Kinnamee?
No, it was only memory. I have to find it on my map. It's a bit more north. Follow the Arconsumed. North.
Yeah,
follow the river. There you go. Somewhere up there.
See, I thought it was down south.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or maybe it is. Hang on a second.
Yeah, you guys got me following all over the place.
I don't have my map open because I don't want to slow my
let's see
computer
here.
down. I feel like it's south of the Rift Canyon. But anyway.
Okay.
I don't see it.
While you guys
that was the Artonsbrook. It's just across from Rookroost.
Right. But I'm looking for Mercy.
I see it.
Bluff.
I got it.
Right. There
Mercy's
you go.
Bluff.
That's
There you
on
go.
Anna's map between Balmond and Shearwatch.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Because the players of the Gonigan Halflings said, well, where did the first Gonigan come from? Well, hey, let's create just this backstory. It's all unofficial backstory. There's a halfling village there called Mercy's Bluff. And during the Iusian War, the Greyhawk Wars, Iusa's forces just ran right through it, right? What are a bunch of halflings going to do to Kranzer and all the demons he had at that?
Obviously, you never
the
played battle
humans had fled up until the Felry Forest. They weren't around to help them. So the PCs, the Living Greyhawk PCs, gave us this backstory, and we said, that sounds really cool. We're going to make that an abandoned, haunted halfling village, and we put it in an adventure where the PCs had to go there and put a halfling ghost to rest.
It's cool. It's super, super cool. And I know Mattias is asking, how do we do this in our own? How do we apply this kind of stuff in our own campaigns? There is no. I'm detail oriented with all my notebooks. I'm not this detail oriented, right? I don't know if a lot of people. I know you had to be because of the way you had to submit everything and all. But if we don't go that far away, for an example, here's the Gradivus estate. a player character ruined during the Ayus Wars in my campaign. Similar, right? That Anna's added to the map, and we actually had an adventure in here that's in Treasures of Treasures of Greyhawk in the here we just had. So there are similar things you can do yourself without having to go. This level of detail was a necessity because it was 3.5 was that way too. Everything was stat, you had a lot of crunch into it.
And 3.5 had the Dungeon Master's Guide too, which had rules for organizations. And we didn't really use those, but they were kind of similar. I think various Wizards of the Coast designers had been involved at the RPGA and were living Greyhawk, and probably took the best little bits that they had absorbed and put it in Dungeon Master's Guide too. And then in 4th edition, I think they probably had some organization stuff. And I think you see a little bit in 5th edition. But Pathfinder is where they really, I think, expanded upon it, because you had Eric Mona and you had Jason Bullman and all these people who had been high up in living Greyhawk. And I think they took the theory of these guilds and whatnot. And in Pathfinder Society, you see this a lot. Every adventure has side quests for like the 8 or 6 main meta orgs that PCs are in Pathfinder Society. I forget exactly what they're called in Pathfinder Society. They're not meta orgs, but they're the same thing essentially.
Yeah, and then you have the ultimate campaign guide for Pathfinder that is kind of a codifies it for your own campaign.
Affiliations?
It might be. Yeah, I forgot what.
Okay.
Oh no, there's a specific term for it, and I can't remember what it is because I haven't
me
done
neither. But
Pathfinder
it's
Society in so long.
I got Thief up here.
Let me
Well,
tell you what I do, and when I'm doing that, I love organizations in general.
Same
Meta
here.
orgs in Living Greyhawk were one of my fave things, and it colored me for sure afterwards. But even before that, I think I was sort of into it. I would say in my first edition AD&D games, I was mostly the GM.
It's me.
I never had a high level character, but my players did, and some of the things that really struck me from the original player's handbook were the druids and the monks. So if you get to be a high level druid in AD&D, well, you're gonna have to fight someone. If you want to be, you're in an organization, and it has, and they're doing their own thing. They have their own plans. They're having an effect on the world, probably to the same extent as the Circle of Eight. The druids were a meta org, in my opinion. They were an organization, and but it was a global one, or at least a continental one, or whatever. And when I think about having my players be a member of an organization, or just to have an organization that they're not members of, I sort of treat it like it's a player character, or a non-player character, I guess I should say. But I think of it as having a motivation. It's the first thing I want to know is, what does this organization want to do? What are its goals? Because they have them. I mean, a normal corporation's goal is to make money for its shareholders.
Yeah.
Well, what is the Druid's goal? What's the goal of the Knights of the Heart? What's the goal of the Knights of the Shieldland? What's the goal of the Blackwatch? What's the goal of the Mokulad Consortium? They all have goals. If you look at them for even a second, it's usually pretty easy to figure them out. So you figure out what their goals are, and then you figure out, well, what's the next step that they would be taking to get that goal done? You've instantly got an adventure hook if the players are anywhere near that. And if they're not, and I tend to sprawl, so I'm like, okay, these guys want to do this, these guys want to do this, these guys want to do this. The players are in this one, so they're going to hear about this. They're not going to know about this, but it's going to happen anyways if they don't find out. The Thieves Guild in Greyhawk is doing stuff, and you don't know about it because it's the Thieves Guild of Greyhawk, and they're sneaky. So if you think of a meta org as a person who has a simple goal and is going to take steps for it, write down what the step is. Think about how are they going to do it next. They have a membership of people, so clearly the leadership is going to be telling certain people to do certain things. It all sort of flows from that if you just treat it as reality. If you were to try and do it, think about if you were the police commissioner, you would divide up your officers and your detectives and your accounts receivable people in all different ways, right, to get the
Yeah.
job done. All your meta orgs are going to be like that. And this isn't even just D&D. I use it in every game that
Sure.
I run. I'm running a Wraith the Oblivion campaign. What are the harbingers doing? What are the specters all up to? Why is the hierarchy doing this? It's all the same thing. And no matter what game you're playing, if you have organizations, it seems like a more real place. If your organizations just sit there and don't do anything, they don't make sense. And so, yeah, I think that the meta orgs in LG took it to an extreme level, but I think it having a whole bunch of people do it made it easy. You got a whole bunch of people who are passionate about something to write the background, the levels of this thing, and all you had to do was edit it. That wasn't always easy, but it's easier than coming up with it all yourself, which is something that you're usually doing when you're in a home campaign. So I would say one other tip for bringing this stuff to your home campaign is let your players write some of it.
Yeah.
If they're into it,
Yeah,
if they're
great
into
idea.
this meta organization, that's what I do, man. I'm like, okay, so you wanna be a part of the city watch. Okay, well, why don't you come up with the name of the guy who runs it and tell me what they're trying to do other than keep keep the lights on in the city, keep the bad guys out. Who do they think are bad guys? Do they think halflings are bad guys? An organization is like a human being in a lot of ways. It can have traditional prejudices and it can have traditional privileges, I guess. So you got to think of them as people, and especially they should be flawed people. In fact, that's something I also pretty much insist on, although I don't always let the players write this part. What's the
Right.
weakness of this organization? What's its Achilles heel? How and what obstacles are in the way of its goals, and who is trying to stop them? What would really hurt them the most?
Who is
all those
secretly a member of the Horn Society?
stuff like that.
Oh,
Sometimes the weaknesses are the members. But yeah, all this stuff, it's a key to making a really good home campaign. It also was a key to making what I consider to be a really good global campaign.
And Jay's Order of Ulick is a meta org.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
His players join it. They get benefits for joining it. They pay a
Absolutely.
cost to join it. It is, and you have others, I believe, the various like Knights of the
Yeah, the
Gnarly
Slings
or
Forest
whatever.
Knights Watch, the Dark Brotherhoods, an evil organization, the mercenary groups themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's
Guilds.
an adventuring party, but they certainly are similar.
The Spellcasters Guild of
absolutely.
Altamira. Yeah, there's a whole
Right.
bunch of them. And
If we'd have been allowed to play in the free city of Greyhawk, we would have done the Beggars Guild, the Assassins Guild, the Thieves Guild, the Lamplighters Guild, the Night
Yeah,
Watchmen,
absolutely.
whatever.
We have Night
Yeah.
Watch. I mean, Walt's got the deputy guildmaster of the Night Watch now. He's got the second in command in my campaign of the Night Watch behind Garvin. So that's how it goes, and those are all like mega orgs. And it's funny, this discussion, how this is going to tie in to Monday night next Monday, because I don't have it on Sunday because of 4th of July. But I'm going to do Greyhawk and developing long-term campaign arcs. Kind of fits in with this, because that's
Well,
a way
there
to
you go.
do it.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
Yeah.
Right, because
So.
as John said, we could write adventures around what are the Yo-Rays doing. The Yo-Rays are a canon kingdom inside the Bandit Kingdoms who got overrun and lost their capital city, and it's mentioned somewhere. It's deep in some adventure. It's not even an I use the evil. It's buried in an actual adventure that people from Yo-Rays have become mercenaries who are highly praised and valued around the Flaness because they're lawful, neutral, or whatever, and they're just really good mercs. We created a meta org for people who could, maybe you wanted to be a badass knight, or maybe you just wanted to be a citizen of this place so you can own some property.
It's cool, and so why don't we discuss a couple other, while we have time here, because man, we're almost at an hour and a half already. Isn't that crazy? How quick this is going tonight. So why don't we pick one or two from each of yours on orgs you really think would be cool to had some neat things to it, or that may tie in that would be universally used. How about that? Something
Let's
like
do a bar.
What's that?
Let's do a bar.
A bar, okay.
We did a meta org for people who were
All right, let's take a
spending
look.
too much time at a bar.
And that was called what?
Barfly?
Years.
Barflies.
Barfly. Here we go.
Wow.
The
'Cause
Barfly
during-
meta org.
No surprise here. During my college years, I
Oh
spent
my
too much time at a
gosh.
bar. In Bryan College Station, Dudley's Draw. I went to Texas A&M University, for those of you from Texas. And I spent a lot of my time in Dudley's Draw, and that's where I made a lot of my friends. And when I got into living Greyhawk, I was like, there should be a meta org for people who spend too much time in a bar. Who adventurers, where do you meet? Where do you go when you have a whole bunch of coin and
Will
you
be
need to get
in-flies.
hammered? We see it in Conan movie. He goes to a bar.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I went and grabbed this little fly logo and I stuck it on the meta org shirt.
But you can't be wanted by the Church of Ayas at all.
Because it's in Rook Roost.
Oh, this one. Okay. All
The
right.
Dirty Dog Tavern
Okay.
is in Rook Roost. And it turns out there's like a Dirty Dog Tavern somewhere in Austin as well, but we didn't know that. So we didn't steal from them. And so you get a +1 circumstance bonus to fortitude saves made versus intoxication. Because you drink a lot, basically. But it gives you access to some alcohols.
My hire Gummy the Bouncer at half cost.
Now we're getting into, we did a thing called BK Mercs. We created mercenaries who were NPCs, fully statted out stat blocks, that parties of 4 adventuring parties during Living Greyhawk were 4, 5, or 6 players.
So if they needed someone.
So if they were 4 and they needed one more body to help them get through an adventure, they could go hire Gummy the Bouncer, and the Dungeon Master could pull up Gummy's stats. He was probably a 6th level monk with the Drunken Master
And no
kind
teeth,
of build.
right? He was Gummy because he had no teeth. I
Right.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a half orc bouncer. And a lot of these organizations had a thing where you could hire one of the BK
That is
mercenaries
awesome.
as a result. But as you can see here, you could gain access to the Drunken Master Prestige class from Classes of the Wild, I think CW was. If you were in this organization long enough, you could buy various alcohols. And maybe you're on a mission and you run into some goblins, and your character has Goblin Thudrut, which was an alcohol from one of the books in 3rd edition. Maybe the Dungeon Master would say, you know what? That's a big bonus to a diplomacy check right there. Fun stuff like that. You needed a place to crash because your character was broke, had lost all their stuff. You could spend the night on the floor in the common room, in front of the fireplace.
That is funny.
And you gain bonuses to gather information inside Rook Roost. You're sitting there, you're talking to people.
Now, a lot of you are going to say, I'm a DM and I have bars where they hang out and I don't need to go into this level of detail, and that's true as a DM. You can say whatever edition you play in, you can connect. This is what a DM does on the fly a lot of times too. But because remember, this is Living Greyhawk, they had to do it this way. So
Right. It had to be on paper.
It had to be on paper. All right. So Big Jim asked a question, and let's see if John can answer this. What's the craziest meta org shenanigans players tried to pull?
Oh, I mean, I think that nothing too crazy happened with the meta orgs because they were pretty they were just solid documents and you had to do the stuff.
Right.
Meta, do you mean did someone try to get us to make a meta org that was really weird?
So that's possibly too. Yeah, if you want to talk about that, yeah, or something that someone did and abused the meta org and really pushed it.
Forged a meta org and tried to.
I don't
fool
remember
the
that.
DM?
I don't think that ever happened to my knowledge that anyone really tried to cheat with the meta org. But yeah, I mean,
Okay.
And the other question would be the same. No one ever suggested a meta org that we that we put down.
Kiboshed it.
It was a lot of work to make one, and so
Yeah.
it was usually pitched to us. Most of them we pitched to the writers in the first place. They were all stuff that we wanted as triads, mostly because it had something to do with canon. We wanted this thing to be there. The only one, there were a couple that were pitched to us. One was the Elementalists, which was a way to basically specialize your
I love
characters
that.
to be around.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was pretty much written. It never got circle approval before
Oh, I love
the end of the
that.
campaign, but it would have.
Oh,
We just were
man.
working out the last details of it.
Yes.
I think the craziest one we let in. It was very cool. It's one called the Dusklash, and like I said, Chris Slater was he became a triad in the final year.
I don't see that one.
And his friend Jason created that one. Did I not include that?
Would it be in the one with the metas or old org certs?
No, I just forgot to send it to you.
Okay, no problem. It's okay.
Yeah, that's too bad because it's got some cool visuals in it. But basically, the Dusklash was a smugglers organization, and it was associated with the Church of Zanye. I think it didn't make it into the folder because it literally didn't get finished until the last year of the campaign, and so it came about a little bit later.
I like this one, Escape from the Harem.
Yeah, that one came up like basically every adventure that we ever published had, if someone's escaped from the harem, they get to roll their check to see if they get caught, and if they do get caught, then it costs them a bunch of TUs basically, and maybe some money to bribe. Someone might have to bail them out or whatever. But the idea is someone's going to have to like get you away from the trouble. I forget the name of the constables. It was some Turkish name for police. But yeah, you just, that was just a background meta org.
Right.
So you could be part of it, but it came up in every adventure without fail for all of the 3 years. If you were in that and you went to a large city, you'd have to roll. Basically the chance to get caught was bigger the bigger the city you was because there weren't as many police in the and you weren't as easy to recognize. But yeah, the Dusklash was the coolest one in a lot of ways because it was a true meta org in the sense that there was a meta game to it that the characters didn't know but the players knew. It had 2 different branches. One was sort of a thuggery and bonk them over the head kind of thieves, and one that was more the smugglers and forgery and stuff like that. And so you had a lot of thieves could be in either, or rogues could be in either one, but you had bards going into the smuggling sort of branch of it, and you had fighters in the other branch of it, the thug-like branch. And it was all based on this family that you don't find out as a character until you reach the highest echelons, that they are actually not a smuggling guild at all, but are a secret spy society for the Sultan, answering only to the Sultan.
Oh.
And you only find that out when you get to the final level of the meta org. And but of course, as a player, you read the whole thing and you know how it's going to be.
Right.
But the characters don't know. So you have to role play your character as if they think, I am a smuggler, but only after you do certain things that were really hard. And like I said, the campaign didn't last long enough for it to ever happen, which is a huge pity.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I have I have made characters that belong to all these different meta orgs for my sort of reboot Zeef adventures that I've been running at all the Greyhawk cons. I made pre-gen characters that belong to these, and they go up in their meta orgs. And so there is a Dusklash character in that. The other thing is kind of like the Fight Club. No one's allowed to know you're in the Dusklash. And that's a big deal. If you ever get caught and people find out you're in the Dusklash, they disavow you and might kill you.
So let me say one
But-
thing real quick about John's adventures. We kind of had to rush to get people filled at the end last year, Virtual Greyhawk, the first one. That better not happen this year because John's got great Zeev content. So I wanted them to see filled early. You know what I'm saying? When the sign-ups start in August, because look at how exciting that content is. So yeah.
A
I'm
great
probably
minds
going to put
think-
it up tomorrow.
Good.
Or
That's
maybe
good.
maybe tonight after this.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
gonna do mine.
Yeah.
I'm actually
And-
this particular
yes.
adventure that I'm going to be putting in is the finale of the first arc in our campaign that was that had did a lot of undersea stuff. It had the merfolk in it, and it's the grand finale of that arc. It was a 7th adventure in quite a long series, although they're all set up so that even if you haven't played the previous ones, it'll still work for you. It'll spell out some of the stuff, but this one is the finale, and it actually, unlike the other ones, is one that I personally wrote. So that doesn't mean I remember it any better than I remember the other ones. I'll definitely be looking it over. Our amazing writers for that arc, Jake Robbins and Ian Seal, basically finished the arc, and some people wanted more, and under time crunch, I wasn't able to get those guys to do it. So for various personal reasons, I guess. And so I wrote that one myself to kind of put the cap on it. So I'm excited to run that. I'm planning to run that at
Oh, that's awesome.
your next con.
Yes.
And so yeah, I hope people will join me in that one. And take a look at your meta orgs when you get your character sheets.
Yeah, I want to touch on what John said earlier. In a way, Living Greyhawk created the things we now see in 5th edition called complications during downtime. Those of you who play 5e know that there's a mechanic called downtime to help Dungeon Masters resolve. You go to a bar to get drunk for a week. You're trying to create magic items. 5e introduces like a 10% chance per week of a complication. John's thing that he was describing about being recognized because you were escaped is essentially a downtime complication that you would handle off screen. In the Bandit Kingdoms, our complications could be very similar. You get spotted by the Church of Ayus and you have to spend time and money trying to get away from them, or you get captured off screen and you get whip scars, but then you escape off screen, that kind of stuff. So I thought it was really neat, the convergent evolution or the parallel evolution of that. And then the second thing John said that I want to touch on that I think is really neat, because I did the same thing for the Bandit Kingdoms tournament, the pre-gens that I supplied, and Mike, you played this, and John, you played this. Each of them is tied to a Bandit Kingdoms meta org, some of which we're discussing tonight. Just blowing through them real quick. Sergey is a Renee, who's a member of the Red Planks meta organization of Renee Bargeman. Tammy Gonigan, who John played brilliantly, is a member of the Gonigan Halflings of Rookroos. Varen, who Jose is going to be playing in our special broadcast of it in July, is a necromancer who is a member of an organization based out of Halorn that we discussed earlier tonight, the Death Cultists. Tosk, the half-orc barbarian, is a member of the Dazark Orcs, and they're out of Ayus the Evil, where they're orcs who did not side with Ayus.
Yeah. That's only in 10 days, Casey. Casey, that's only in
what?
10 days, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm ready. Are you?
What am I not ready for a stream?
Garavina the Pure is a cleric of Foltus who would be a member of the Church of Ebenglu. So I think it's really neat to hear John say that his pre-gens, are members of the meta orgs, because I do it as well.
Your pre-gens, and this is a key thing that I want to stress to anyone out there who has a Greyhawk campaign. It becomes much more full of life if you take, and they could be other players' player characters, you put them in your adventures. Everyone knows my hools. It's all characters in my campaign, whether they're PCs or NPCs. And what John has done and Casey has done the same thing. And that just gives it more legitimacy and gives it more flavor. I mean, it's a key point you're both making here with those characters. Absolutely. Really, really cool. So it's a neat thing. Classic DMing, yes. What was that, Casey?
I was gonna say, unless Anna or Mike have a question, there's one other meta org I really
Oh,
want to.
Sure,
please,
go for
please,
it.
Shout out
please go
to.
for it. Yep.
Go for it, man, and I'll put it up.
Because this to me again ties into the fact that we were in a living campaign. So we had a meta org day called the Defenders of Moranon Keep. It's Moranon AR in the files. So we've talked in past shows about
Got
how
it.
Prince Zeech of Red Hand hosted a tournament in
Yes.
like year 1 of the Bandit Kingdoms adventures, because he needed a new baron for this decrepit, rundown keep called Moranon Keep. It's not a canon location. It was just something the authors and Triad came up with at the time for an interactive. Interactive is where you could have more than 6 people doing the same thing at the same time. They might be at multiple different tables in the same room, but you could have 100, 200. I think we've heard from Joff that they had even 300 people interactive.
That's insane.
But, so the Joust became a legendary BK event because all these low-level schmucks wanted to win the Joust and become a baron. Just like Jay, you had a Joust recently.
Yes, I
It
did.
was a little similar to that. So the prize was the barony of Moranon, and the winner was a cleric of Ralashaz who had hidden a wand of True Strike in his robe,
He cheated.
and he cheated, and he hit the wand of True Strike, and then he would knock everyone off their horse,
That's just
and
painful.
he won the tilts, got the barony, and he was role played by a gentleman named Patrick Brown, no relation. Patrick, you guys might have seen on America's Got Talent because he was the MC of Arc Attack, which is the singing Tesla coil band that used to go to Dragon Con and other things of that nature. And they made it to like the second round, the Las Vegas round of Arc Attack or of America's Got Talent 8, 10, 15 years ago. So Patrick was playing this crazy cleric of Ralashaz and had won the title Baron of Moranon Keep. And his name was Ulik, U-L-I-K.
Mhm.
Ulik the Unlooked For, I think is what he liked to go by. And so we created a meta org so that if you wanted your character to hang out with the Baron and his crazy friends, you could join the Defenders of Moranon Keep. So again, this is a living campaign. This was a character who won a tournament, who got titled, and Patrick would show up to events in full costume, and he would play the most commanding presence. He's very tall, he's very charismatic, he's very personable as a real person, and he would negotiate with Iusians. He'd be like, well, I'm the Baron of Moranon, and I am a vassal of Lord Zeech of Red Hand, and Lord Zeech of Red Hand is a vassal of Ius, so therefore you work for me.
Oh my gosh.
And it worked. It was hilarious. He would roll his diplomacy checks or whatever, and he would get various bonuses for his role playing and all that stuff. So this Defenders org, I always just thought was really great because it was created because of player activity.
Mhm.
And I would hope it would be canonized one day. If there's ever a reboot of Greyhawk that's official somewhere, I hope, the Baron of Moranon Keep gets
Yeah,
into it.
it's
somehow.
on my map. So at
and
the barony
it's on Anna's map.
yeah,
That makes it official enough for me. Patrick created the shield. If you scroll up,
Yep. It's on my map
This is
too.
called an adventure record.
It's
Patrick
awesome.
took a shield, like from the Shield Lands, added the bones and the colors to it,
That's
and
cool.
he then built that and would bring it to cons.
Oh, it's awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
So the barony of Moranon and Moranon Keep is on my map now. So yep.
And then Patrick got busy doing the Architect stuff and kind of retired from living Greyhawk sometime around 596. And we had a tournament to get a new Baron. And that's the one we've talked about before, where people had to joust, but the lance was a chicken. And one of the
Wow.
challenges was, can you survive walking through a prismatic wall?
Oh my gosh. So
Wow.
that's like
Right.
5 saves and 70 points of damage.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
As it turns out, very few PCs can survive that.
Mm-hmm.
Garn
Wow.
survived it.
No, my first character, the Elven worshiper
okay.
Kelanin,
Oh my gosh.
but she was like 15th level. She
Yeah.
barely survived it.
My gosh. That's insane.
So just fun times we had there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I could talk about this stuff all night because I started in the Bandit Kingdoms as a meta org coordinator for the Fanlair and Shen Elves. And then I became a triad assistant, and I helped with the special missions, which we've talked about before, which were adventures written for one table. It was only ever run once. And we had some generic special missions that would give access to prestige classes, but really a special mission was only run for one table. And then from there, I started assisting. I wrote a couple adventures. I started helping more and more. And then when my predecessor, Tom Brister, stepped down, I became the Bandit Kingdom's meta org coordinator. So I was in charge of this document, the entire thing. And I immediately re-edited it and cleaned it up because my predecessors, like myself, had been unpaid volunteers, and it needed some polishing and cleaning up. And
Right.
And then Susan, who we've had on the show, took over the meta orgs when I switched roles to deal more with the adventures in the later years of the campaign. But I always still had my hand in the meta orgs, and I always tried to incorporate them into our adventures.
What cert was that with the fly?
The barfly.
Oh, the barfly. That was the barfly
Yep.
there, Patrick. The drinking one. So John, you got something you want to discuss in closing here from your meta orgs or any
Yeah,
other?
sure. I'll bring up the Urzaries because
Yep, I got them here.
pretty much every time I've been running my my retro Living Greyhawk adventures.
Mhm.
The half orc Urzari character is picked. Someone always wants to play her. It's very popular, and it's just it's a very Zeef thing. The Urzaries, obviously based on the idea of the Janissaries from history, and so it's got. We decided, they reported to the Sultan, and they were a military org. We had 3 military meta orgs out of our 7 meta orgs. 3 of them were military. We had and they all had rivalries. So we had the Urzaries, who reported directly to the Sultan. We had the Royal Navy of Zeef, which also, it was a branch of the military, reported to the Sultan. And then we had the Spahis, which were more like typical knights. So they were landholders and family oriented. So ultimately, they reported to the Beys, who are kind of like barons and counts and stuff like that. And the Beys were under basically feudal law. So reported to their. Some of them were smaller, under bays to the over bays. I can't remember what they called them. Days and bays, and then above that was again the Sultan. So there were strong rivalries between these organizations, but of course they all worked for the Sultan in the end. But whenever people are playing them in my games, they always bring that stuff up, and there's always rivalries. Someone usually plays the sailor character, who's from the Royal Navy meta org, because it's also a very fun one. He's kind of the stereotypical sailor with the girl in every port and likes to drink and dance. And the Urzari character, super serious, because they are an indentured servant for 20 years. They're in a way sort of like I guess nuns in a way, like the way that a Catholic nun is the idea is that they're married to God, or the bride of Christ or whatever. These belong to the Sultan the same way that the harem does. They just happen to be warriors, and they take it very, very seriously, and they're maybe sometimes humorless about it. At least that's often how it was played.
They sound like Unsullied.
Yeah, they
Like
are
Game of
very much
Thrones.
like the Unsullied
Yeah.
from Game of Thrones. And very much I think that I think there's definitely a Klingon feel to them as well, the Star Trek Klingon idea. Especially more the next generation and on version of Klingons. But they were not nearly as chaotic. It's very lawful, very tied down organization. But all of the levels of it are based on other ways that you could serve. As you can see there,
Soup cooks.
Jay had up the cooks, the waiters, These are different
That is
levels.
so
you
awesome.
cost 26.
Yep, that's right. It
That's
took up half of your
adventuring
year.
potential
That's right.
for a year.
And yeah, you would think that any power gamer is going to go, no, I won't level fast enough. If I go into this meta org. People went into this meta org. It was popular. It was cool. It made your half orc not the typical half orc that you would find elsewhere. I'm chaotic neutral, almost chaotic evil half orc, and I'm a barbarian. I'm going to go crazy all the time. These were very different. They were serious, and they generally did not brook insult. They considered themselves to be working for the Sultan, and if you messed with them, you were working against the Sultan. A lot of them were not super intelligent, as you would expect with a half-orc warrior type build. So, you know, a lot of charisma and intelligence dumps, a lot of wisdom dumps even. A lot of them were warriors. So people would make these characters that were sort of lawful stupid, but not in the way that most people think, like a paladin. These were the ones who are ready to cut your head off because they perceived incorrectly that you insulted their army.
Right.
I love your qualification there, half orc or orc. There were a few certed non-standard race PCs in the game. I forget, did you guys get to have full-blooded orcs, or did you just put that in there just in case?
We just put it in just in case. We were never able to give away the full-blooded orc.
I think there were 5 non-standard ones given away at like a Winter Fantasy Gen Con. We know one was a hobgoblin. Jose, wasn't that Gillen, Jeff, or Grand March? I think there was a centaur before the centaurs were made freely available, and I forget what the other 3 were. I can't remember. But John, that was one of my dreams too. The Bandit Kingdom, we should have been able to have full-blooded orc
vegetable
PCs.
gardeners. Oh my gosh!
But when you look at 3rd edition race design, full-blooded orcs had a +4 bonus to their strength. You could build a character with a strength of 22 at first level.
Yeah,
so that's why they didn't allow them.
Well, I eventually earned, by retiring that archer character I was telling you about, in one of the core modules, I gained access to make a new character with various different options, and the one I chose was a frost dwarf, which has a +4 Constitution modifier.
What was this?
Frost dwarf. I can't remember
what.
what
How'd you get that access?
I got it from, I think it was the Ether Threat. So at the last module of the Ether Threat, you have the option with your character there they have to close the gate, and if you say my character is willing to stay behind,
right?
I'm gonna stay there in eternity and guard this gate,
right?
So no one can get in. Well, I did that with my character. I didn't know you'd get anything for it. I just thought it was cool, and this was about the time I was playing a Duchy of Ernst's character, but really I was busy with Zeef, and so I felt like, okay, this is a good time to retire. And so retiring the character was cool. And then, they gave me this access to play one of, I think there were 3 or 4 different options. And
cool.
I basically rolled a die and it landed on Frost Dwarf. Okay, what's a Frost Dwarf? Well, +4 Constitution modifier.
I bet you that was in Frostburn, the book.
It was in Frostborn, yeah. And so I made a barbarian, and it was a point buy system, so I maxed out the Constitution, and so I started with a 22 Constitution that only went up when I got mad.
You had 18 hit points at first level.
Yeah, and I think I played the character like 4th level or something like that, but I had a lot of hit points. Given the the D12 that you're using for barbarians in 3rd edition.
That's awesome.
For your hit points.
I didn't realize that about the ending of the Ether Threat. I guess I didn't stay behind, so I didn't get to see that special cert. I'm sure my character ran like a.
Not many people did it apparently, which I found surprising. To me, it was just, this is the coolest way to go out. Right. I've saved the world, with my character. So yeah, as much as people crap on the Ether Threat series,
right.
For me, it was a cool experience, at least at the end. I loved the end, and that was a fun way to go out. And I ended up, for the last dribbling minutes of the campaign, I got to play Frost Dwarf with more hit points than characters who were many levels higher than her.
And then that's one of the things I think I would do if I get another living campaign from scratch, I've always had this idea in my head. How do you fight power creep, right? Because in Living Greyhawk, John says people hit 20th level in year 3, I think it was, before they put a hard cap on leveling, and like it was lowered to 17 was retirement level, and whatnot. Well, you give characters and players an incentive to retire, own a bar. You know, adventuring is dangerous, right? Too many PCs actually survive Living Greyhawk, in my opinion, but that's a whole other thing. PC should retire and say, screw this, I'm tired of fighting dragons. I've lost a leg. I just want to chill out. And you can encourage that by saying, if you retire a 3rd level character, you get like a +1 bonus to when you're rolling up stats next time. If you retire a 5th level character, you get a trinket or a +1 weapon or something. If you retire a 9th level character, you gain access to a snow elf or a frost dwarf. You retire a 13th level character, you can play a baby gold dragon or just something stupid, you know, to encourage people to retire their high level characters. Because high level gaming in 3rd edition was a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I should mention with regard to that was, and this was very unique to Zeef, was because we used to be, our region used to be the Duchy of Ernst, and then a chunk of, you know, Western Canada, that whole chunk of Western Canada got removed from the Duchy of Ernst and suddenly became Zeef. I don't know if you look on a map, they're not close together. So we had all of these people who were playing these high-level characters. They had all these high-level Duchy of Ernst characters. We weren't going to write any high-level adventures because we wanted people to start new Zeef characters. I think our highest level possible adventure was 10th level in our first year of existence. So people had higher than 10th level characters at that time.
That's insane.
They'd been playing for a while. So they were just like, well, I can't play my character here. So we gave them the opportunity. Well, would you like to retire your character in Zeef? So basically a lot of our town project is actually, they're full of retired characters from the Duchy of Ernst who saved up money and bought a plot of land in the West.
Hey.
And so those characters' names are on the, you know, they own the bar. This guy's the blacksmith of the town and stuff like that. Those are a whole bunch of player characters' names. And they're like, what are all these Sulawese nobles doing in a Bakunish country? Well, you know, they deal with the prejudice as they can, but they're rich because they're like 14th level Greyhawk PCs, so they can afford to make it work.
One quick campaign question for Casey from Cathay. Do you know if Stoink Miniduran currency?
I was just about to answer him in the chat, and I posted something about coinage in the Bandit Kingdoms on the Discord. But
there you go.
This is coming from memory now. I think in canon, the Bandit Kingdoms had 4 mints: Rookroost, Stoink, Alhaster, Red Hand, and maybe Rift Crag were the 4 towns that had enough government presence and money and wealth to actually have a mint and mint their own coins. But when I use rolls through, what's something a conquering force does, right? They take your mint. They're in control of the economy. So I believe that's buried somewhere in either I Use the Evil or the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. I think Stoink probably did have its own mint at one time. Doesn't anymore unless they've since replaced it. At the end of Living Greyhawk 598, Ayus had been pretty well driven out of the Bandit Kingdoms from a frontal position and more into he has assassins and people lurking around and whatnot. But the thing I posted in the Discord was, in the Bandit Kingdoms, you could use coins from the Empire of Ayus, Divers, Furyundi, Greyhawk, Highfolk, Pale, Shieldlands, 10, and County of Ernst. Why? Because they've been raiding these lands for decades or hundreds of years. Everyone was familiar with the coinage. You know, I imagine if you lived in Europe before the euro, right? French people were pretty familiar with, what is it, the German Deutschmark, right? And the Geld or Gilder and, you know, all the Scandinavian coins. So I envisioned it like that for the Bandit Kingdoms.
What a great discussion tonight.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, really cool.
Got to get Jose and Eric and
Yeah, well,
the
I
rest
have a
of them on to
message.
talk Joff. Just their own show.
I have a message out to Eric because it's time for an Eric, Ed Greenwood, Tony, Gavin too. So, and time to get that group back together on a Saturday night. So we got a lot going on, and yeah, but it would be a wonderful discussion with the G off. If they have 100 meta orgs, oh my gosh.
And we had 25.
Yeah.
I think there were probably over 600 meta orgs total in the campaign, but I'm not sure. You have to ask the Europeans. How much did you guys do?
Yeah, we're trying. Well, yeah. Absolutely trying to get more and more. We had the Finns on a couple weeks ago, which is great. So we're getting more and more of them involved. Well, John and Casey, once again, thanks. Wow, great discussion. Let's go around and rapid fire some shout outs. So Mike, you've been quiet. Let's throw a Mike on here, man. What's going on, dude?
Well, I don't know if my players would have been interested in that, but if I had been a player and known about these meta orgs before today, I'm embarrassed that I just now found out about these. I probably would have been a pretty deep Living Graph player. I would have. I'm into that kind of bookkeeping stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty
personally. So good job, guys.
Yeah.
On explaining all that stuff.
Definitely.
What's going on? Nothing going on. But July 5th, Great Cast is starting. So.
Oh.
Yes, it is.
Podcast. Check that out.
I am being interviewed by them Friday.
Nice.
So I have an appointment Friday, I think 11 a.m. with Mattias and Wiley. Yep.
Yeah, really looking forward to that.
I don't know what episode number that'll be, but it's cool. July 5th it starts. Yeah.
Best of luck to those guys.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely something to add. It's really a great to have a podcast. Really be awesome. So Anna, you were very quiet tonight.
Well, I just must say
absorbing.
that this is one of the shows that I came in with very low expectation to find anything super interesting, and it blew my expectations really big time. So it's fantastic. Thank you, Casey.
I love Anna's honesty.
Yeah. This was something that this meta org is something living Greyhawk. It might be interesting, kind of, and then it was like, wow, this is super cool. This is so much fun, and also because I'm using, I usually just label them factions, and then I use notoriety, so characters can either have a positive or negative relationship with certain organizations. So it's just a basic simple meaning. If someone organization hate them enough, they will start sending a posse out to kill them, etc. And if they get enough positive, then they will give them perks and help them and whatnot. So I keep lists for different PCs and their relationship with various factions. So this is super interesting. So I'm taking notes, and there will be some of these appearing in my campaigns. So it's awesome. Thank you, guys. I think this is something that every DM should start thinking about, how they want to implement stuff like this in their campaign, because I think it builds consistency over time. It really helps with immersive stories over time, so to speak. And that's why I think a lot of players really want that. It's not about just fighting the monsters. It's about that building interesting connections, that things that comes back and bites them 10 sessions later or something. These are super interesting things in any campaign, I think.
Yep.
And I would encourage DMs who are thinking like, well, I can't create 20 things from scratch or 10 things from scratch. Create one. And for your next campaign, maybe all the PCs were members of that meta org, retired soldiers.
Absolutely.
Barflies, the Order of Ulik.
Yeah, and you don't have to create them all before the campaign starts. Sometimes they come up and spur of the moment during the campaign. It was like, oh, that town needs a thief guild, or there's a bunch of crazy priests somewhere, a cult, or whatever it is, a noble house that is gone extinct, people think, but they're still hidden members that are that way or whatever. So you can tweak this endlessly and use use these things as an inspiration for your own creations.
So
and you can steal them wholesale too, so to speak. You can kind of use a lot of these meta orgs and stuff. That the Zyph harem and stuff is awesome. So it's kind of super cool. So yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't shout out our next fantasy mapping show yet, Anna, because I got
Oh, you got
Speaking of
screwed up
that-
again?
Well,
with
no,
the-
no, because I got Tim's this Saturday and I got
Mm-hmm.
Casey's next Saturday, and then so
Yeah, but we
the
can.
buttons
Yeah,
are yeah.
yeah. Time to
Thanks,
get
Wiley.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah, for the raid. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Wiley.
Mhm.
As we're on announcements, you guys. Oops, I can't spell tonight.
Well, I have a bunch of stuff that I want to. First of all, in a couple of days, I'm going to revamp my Patreon a bit, so to speak. So I put in new goals. So the goal is to $1,000, $1,500, and then $2,000. So $1,000, I'm going to start my GIS projects to convert the Flannery's map and the atlas and stuff into to start using professional cartography tools. So I've been gearing up for that for a couple of years. So that will start because we're this close to getting $1,000 a month in on my Patreon. So thank you everyone for supporting me. And I'm doing the utmost to try and deliver. So this is kind of a little bit of an in-between. So, but there's a whole bunch of stuff in the making, and some things will start popping. So I just finished the first version of the planetary model, so to speak, worth the first version, and there is more coming on that one. So there will be an Ice Age version. There will be more looking at polar ice caps and stuff like that. It's coming in a couple of weeks, and on the map there will be new tiers on my Patreon too. So now is the time to get in on the $1 tier if you want to keep it, because I'm going to retire the $1 tier, and there will be a $2, $5, and a $10 tiers. But everyone who is on the $1 tier will be automatic grandfathered in on the $2 tier as long as you keep it. So now is the chance to do it, so to speak. And that will be the normal tier to get all the finished maps and all that early on, so to speak. Because during the COVID, up until since COVID started March until now, I've had every post on my Patreon have been open for everybody, because a lot of people had hardships and stuff, and I didn't want to hide anything behind a paywall while the pandemic was going on. So, but now I decided things that I went with California, meaning we're now officially out of it. We'll see. We might get back in again. We'll see, but hopefully not. So from now on, there will be Patreon posts that will be hidden behind a paywall for a while, and then there will be the final maps will be released to everyone. Thank you so much for the good reviews of the first mapping show. That's coming too. So
Yes.
we have a second episode of the mapping show coming in July. What is it?
16th. Yep.
16th. Yep.
Mhm.
And we will time to disclose
Well,
the topic,
no.
I think.
So
Not yet. Too
so
early.
we're trying to get a very special guest on, and that special
Mhm.
guest said today maybe, and Ellis is like,
Oh,
what's this bullshit? It's either yes or no. Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
No damn maybes here.
Yeah,
So,
well,
okay.
yeah. So that's what we
So,
have.
so we
from
we hide the topic then. We don't talk
yeah,
about
we gotta
that yet.
hold off on this.
Okay,
on this
we hold off
topic
on that
until-
one.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
yep, mhm.
Hopefully, we'll know more.
Yep.
Coming
Okay,
up
good.
here,
That's more
so-
than I know. But
Yeah.
but I
That
will-
weekend will be blasted because the
Mhm.
fundraisers that weekend, and I may have
Yep.
something on Sundays. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yep.
a busy weekend.
Yeah, you do. But I will have a new secret project that I've been working on that I will have a first sneak peek into on that fantasy mapping show.
Awesome.
That is something a bit different. It's Greyhawk map still, but a bit different from anything that I've done before, but something I've been wanting to do for years and years. So now it's been a little side quest. So now I've had more time lately to dig into it. So I will show a first kind of teaser onto it and then see what the reaction. And my patrons will find that out much sooner than that. So my patrons will find out in a week or so. I will start posting some ideas and teasers around this project, and we'll see. It might not be
Teasing's good.
anyone's interest really. Then we can just put it aside, because it's not one that I'm dying to do. It's just something that I think should be there, and now I found some cool way to do it. So if it's something to the liking, then we'll devote some time to it and have it as one of the projects. And then we have the my campaign map, the test area of Southern Shieldlands is going into the final phases of the first 250 square miles, and it's starting to look awesome. I must say, it looks even better than I thought. And now I'm doing the really cool work of adding civilization, meaning roads, houses, and stuff like that. So I have to realize who lives there, where do they live, and then I realized that not only the existing stuff, meaning you can see roads that go back hundreds of years and trails and old ruins and stuff like that. So I have to start digging into history of Shieldlands and stuff, doing that. So that is a lot of fun doing it. This is world building that every cartographer should do, and have to start having landscape in like aerial photography quality, and you can start looking at every creek and realize that who lives in this valley, and where do they build a bridge across this river here, or is that too difficult to do? Is that bridge ruined during the war? Is that pass up through the hills here needs to have a keep, because that's the obvious place someone will build a keep. So I've added all these kind of cool stuff, or so to speak. So it will be I think it will be an interesting feast and an interesting study in an area. So it's the area west of it's a section around the village of Aldet that I'm using for my campaign. So it's everything 15 miles, a 15-mile or like a 7-mile radius around it. So it's 15 miles across. So that will be the first area, so to speak. And then the other areas are under development in various stages. So it will be added to over the next couple of months. That will have the whole like 1,000 to 1,500 square miles, basically from Axport to Critwall and then north of it. That will be the area will be covered in the first go here, so to speak, at 5 feet per pixel. So a porta potty resolution. That's that's the goal, so to speak. So you can see every tree. You can see most of it, and it's fun. There will probably be their villages, towns, and all sorts of stuff, and castles and things in there. So and sketches. So it's the bottom-up approach. And then for the Lendora Isles, I'm doing the opposite. I'm testing to do the opposite, to start with a top-down approach. Instead of 5 feet per pixel, it will be 500 feet per pixel. That way I can cover 1,500 miles instead of 15 miles. And there are drawbacks with both methods. Since it's 3D mapping technology, whatever you do, there is pluses and minuses. So I started with the bottom-up approach, from getting from 5 feet per pixel and then doing area after area. There's issues and difficulties that you have to overcome that way. And then I wanted to test the other way around, to do the large picture first and then make higher resolutions afterwards. And then I will simply evaluate each approach and see which one works the best. So that is also coming. And I'm also thinking about, when I'm doing this Photoshop work, it's something that I think might be interesting to look at. Normally when I work in 3D, it's even less interesting than watching paint dry, but this can be interesting, I think, to see a little bit of. So I'm planning to do some streamed sessions when I'm sitting working in Photoshop. So if you want to see me and listen to me discuss and start thinking about where to put roads and trails and bridges and to edit rivers and stuff like that, then I'll start posting some time slots and stuff like that to do it. It's also good because it forces me to sit down and actually do it for 3 hours or 4 hours or something like that. So it might be good for my discipline too. So that is something I want to try out and see if there is an interest, because I'm going to sit down and do it anyway. So cool. It might actually be a good idea to stream it, to force me to sit and do it. So that going on. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that going on. So yeah.
All right, real quick here. Tomorrow night is a big special adventure.
Jay, I gotta throw into you.
What's that?
Because once you get going, that's it. You're gonna.
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
Yeah.
What?
What do I got going on?
Oh, I thought I had you already. No. All right, go for it. I thought I got you guys already. I apologize.
It's okay.
Go for it.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to be playing Yisak in your game.
Yeah, well, that's what's up right now.
So yes. We need to come up. I need to figure out something that's going on, because last time I rolled more fumbles than.
Don't give them special hero points. So give them to me.
I'm going to have all the cats. I need all the special points for that. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow night. Y'all come watch. In my home campaign, I'm running Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and we just finished the final enemy in 5th edition.
Oh wow!
And the PCs, did a great job and have wrapped that up. And now they're all hitting like 8th level. So I got to figure out what to do next because Ghosts of Saltmarsh doesn't actually have an 8th level adventure in it. So I'm thinking I might throw them on some sort of jungle crawl and convert something from an older edition. But my Monday, that's my once a month.
Treasures of Greyhawk.
The what?
Go to Treasures of Greyhawk. There's a couple Sea Princes centric modules.
Yes, there is.
Really?
Yep.
Treasures of Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll do. And my Monday night game is we started a new campaign because one of our players just gave birth to twins. So she's taking a break, and we didn't want to leave her behind in our Dragon of Icefire P pool, which was written by Sean Merwin of the Keelan Triad.
Yep.
So we started up a campaign around Candlekeep Mysteries. Now, people who have Candlekeep Mysteries know that's not actually a campaign book. It's a series of unconnected adventures, 1 for each level, 2 for 4th level. But I said, to hell with it. You guys all work in Candlekeep, and I will make this work. So they're wrapping up the 1st level adventure in that the next time we meet.
You should run the Tony's, the 16th level.
Yeah, well, once we get there in a year, 2 or 3
A
years.
year? A year to get from 1st to 16th? Oh my God!
No, it'll be a lot longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're doing the milestone leveling every time we finish an adventure. Level up before the next.
Okay.
So after that, I have submitted to Gary Holian my Seaton article.
Okay.
Seaton next to Saltmarsh features in Ghost of Saltmarsh a wee little bit. It's mentioned. It's in the original U1, 2, and 3 adventures as like a little word. There's a town called Seaton nearby. I set an adventure there in my Ghost of Saltmarsh, a murder mystery, and I decided I'm going to write it up. Jason Zavoda had shared an image of the town Conway in Wales, and I think he uses it for a town in Verbabank. I based my town of Seaton off of Conway in Wales. So once Gary has given it a good keel and
cool.
scrub and helped point out like things I'm missing, I'm going to send it to Christoph at the Orth Journal. So hopefully everyone is looking forward to some saltwater content, so to speak.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very cool.
On July 3rd, I'm playing in Tim's game Saturday morning.
That's this Saturday, 10 a.m. Session 1, the underdogs. Here, I might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yep. I'm pitching this one. This is a softball lead-in for you, Jay.
There you go. The underdog. Session 1, Desperate Land. With the ever mysterious Tint DMing, all I do is produce.
I will be playing Tokala, who is a half-elf commando cleric of Paylor.
Ooh.
Yes.
Cool.
So, and I think some of y'all watched us roll our stats live
Yeah,
a month or
session
2
0.
ago.
Yeah.
We do not have great stats. I think someone's got a 17. Like one person's got a 17.
That's why you
I
were
forget
the
if it was Patrick.
underdogs.
Too hot to wear underwear, Casey?
I'm not sure I get the rep.
Oh, commando.
Yes.
Oh,
It's
gosh.
a Tim character class. Tim's made up like 30 different new character classes for him. So yes, and Anna's played a commando in the Barbarian campaign too.
Yep.
Yep. So that's a
And
Tim.
then-
That's a Tim class.
The next Saturday, I'm
Yes,
running
sit
the
on.
Bandit Kingdoms Tournament 1
For the final.
for its
time.
last time. Retiring it after it. We've got an all-star cast.
Who's in that cast? I don't have a banner.
We've
for that
got Anna Meyer playing Tammy Gonigan.
yet. Okay.
So you guys will be able to chat about that. We've got Josh Zarathon playing Garavina the Pure, Cleric of Foltus from Dimray.
Mhm.
So a very dark Cleric of Foltus. We've got Time Lord's wife, Kayla, playing Tosk, the half-orc barbarian ranger from the Felreave Forest.
Mhm.
We've got Blue Box John playing Sergei Artansonov, the Renee rogue fighter from the Artansone River. And then we got Jose, who was in the chat tonight, playing Varen, the necromancer from Halorn.
Very, very cool.
So that'll be a great, I think, tournament. John played it. Mike played it. In fact, I think, Mike, you were on the winning table from Virtual Greyhawk Con, as was John. And John was the
Yep.
overall MVP
hmm
with his rendition of Tammy Gonigan. So
So,
a
th-
little
I think I
shout
was
out
the
This-
I was the
to Steve and
Dimray.
Matt as well.
so this is going to be streamed so that everyone can share it. Isn't it? And that's why we're gonna stream this, and plus the
Right.
test, do a test on it too at the same.
Right, because then once that's done, I continue work on Bandit Kingdoms Tournament 2 for Virtual Greyhawk 2.
Yep.
Which now, Jay, here's another softball.
Yes, I just popped it up. There we
There
go.
you go. I didn't see it change yet.
Well, I didn't change the banner because you know.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I can.
And I'm going to announce the title of Bandit Kingdoms Tournament 2 for the first time. It is called Trouble in Grouster.
Trouble in Grouster.
Ooh.
The Trouble in series
Okay.
was a series of adventures during Living Greyhawk written by Keith Simcox. And they became known for their good plots and their detailed NPCs, and they weren't hackfests. And it was a very catchy title, you know, trouble in, you know, this place, trouble in that place. So I am taking 2 Living Greyhawk adventures and I am matching them into one tournament adventure. In BK Tourney 1, the pre-gens are 4th level. In BK Tourney 2, the pre-gens are 12th level. And this is Pathfinder 1E.
Oh my gosh.
So it's the same pre-gens, but they're going to get their 12th level versions of them.
Nice.
However, nothing is as it seems in the Bandit Kingdoms. So everyone should be expecting a big twist. That's all I'm going to say. Those of you like Christoph who played in the Bandit Kingdoms, just think about adventures that were set in Grouster and how they might be mushed together.
Cool.
But don't overthink it because I want you to play the tournament and
Yeah,
have
and it'll
fun.
be 3 sessions again.
I think I'm doing 3, maybe 4. We'll see. But absolutely at least 3. So I just
Awesome.
wanted to,
No, cool.
and I'll get the description up onto Virtual Greyhawk Con either tonight or soon.
John, do you want to shout out anything or like what adventures you're going to run for GrowCon?
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna run what was the 3rd year of Zeef, the adventures from that, for our Eternally Yours arc, which were written by Jake Robbins and Ian Seal. They're called Dry Land. She's all washed up, and then I'm also going to run. So I'm planning to run 3. The final one, which is called Last Splash, which I wrote. And once I've converted all those to Roll20, these are all 3.5, D&D 3.5. So for people who miss that version, I don't see it. I don't see it run a lot at conventions. So if you miss that version, that's one of. This is going to be an opportunity to play in some. Once I get these all done, that will finish the arc.
Awesome.
Of 7 adventures, and my plan is that I will offer to run Zeef weekends for people who want to get a party of
That's
4 to
awesome.
6 players together, and just get a hold of me in Discord or whatever and say,
That's
hey,
amazing.
can you run all 7 of these adventures for me over
Oh my
the course
gosh.
of a weekend or 2 weekends or whatever? Probably 2 weekends is better because they're 4 hours each and probably take more than 4 hours all told, for some of them. So yeah, maybe 2 or 3 weekends worth. But if you're into it and you have a group that wants to do that after Greyhawk Con, basically these are going to re-debut at Greyhawk Con 2, Virtual Greyhawk Con 2. But after that, I'll be open to looking at any group that's like, hey, I want to have some stranger run this finite set of interconnected adventures for us. I'll do that.
Awesome.
Other thing that I've got on the go, not really Greyhawk related or even, well, it's a little bit gaming related, is my art collective, the Papercut Arcade. You can find us at thepapercutarcade.ca. Is going to have its latest event, which is a game remix. It's not our first game remix, but what we do is we take a classic board game and throw away the rules, make new rules for it.
Cool.
This one, and the deadline for submissions is tonight. So after this, I'm going to be on doing some of that before midnight. Get that all squared away. But I have created my own version of the game of Clue
Ooh.
because everyone's been challenged to do something with the game of Clue, even if it's like an art project, like chopping it up and making it
Oh, that's
into
nice.
a sculpture or whatever. I just changed the rules because I like rules. So
All
but
right.
my adventure changes the theme of it. Nobody dies in it. It's not a murder mystery anymore. Instead, it's sort of well, if you were in college in the late 80s or the early 90s, maybe still, I don't know. It's been a long time for me, but it's about it's called. I made an acronym for Clue. It's called Campus Life Undergrads on Ecstasy, and it's maybe a not safe for work sort of a game, but it's about all the characters, you know, Mrs. Peacock and Professor Mustard and all them are actually just college kids, and they're looking to get high and hook up at Mr. Body's mansion.
Nice.
So
like that.
yeah, I created games for that. I created a new game for that, and it's actually we're gonna have a sort of a salon for the whole thing in a couple of weeks. We'll probably also make some YouTube videos of live play, see how it goes. But yeah, that's a thing that I'm doing, and I guess a thing that I'm participating in that's actually somebody else's baby that I want to shout out to because a lot of people know them and a lot of people in our chat are involved are yeah, I'm starting this Saturday. I'm going to be playing in Oblivion Seeker, Les's Greyhawk game. I'm really
Nice.
looking forward to that.
Nice.
We, you know, in our private Discord channel for the campaign, he's possibly written as much lore for our game as I ever wrote for Living Greyhawk in the 3 years I
Wow.
was running it, running our region. So the guy's just fantastic. And yeah, we've got I think Cannibal might be involved. I kind of
Yeah.
don't always connect everybody's real name to their handle, but yeah, some people, yeah, Enoch Pratt, people that we know are going to be in this,
That's
and I'm sure
awesome.
we'll have some war stories to tell about it. And I know it's connected to some stuff that he ran at the last Greyhawk Con, and it's going to be connected to some stuff that he's going to run at the next Greyhawk Con. So that I'm sort of announcing that for him, but I'm sure he won't mind. He knows his lore, and he is very
yeah.
passionate about it. I'm super excited to be involved with that. Playing something from my own past. I'm going to be playing an Elven Ranger. So that brings me back to my Duchy of Ernst Living Greyhawk days.
Very cool.
But this guy is going to be a much more gnarly ranger.
Awesome. Well, just to put it out there with Les today, because I have conflicts and I got to get really a lot of work stuff. I had to get out the initial signups for GreyhawkCon today instead of July 1st, and Les had the first 2 in besides mine. They were in already. I was like, wow. So Les already got his games in. I think we already have 13 submissions already.
Wow.
Yeah, already. So, and that doesn't count all the streams. I'm the only one with my streams in. None of the streamers have theirs in yet, and they're all have open signups. So we got a lot going on here. I'm going to go through this real quick. Tomorrow night, this started out with, oh my gosh, I only have 2 of my players this week. So I asked Time Lord's wife. I actually asked Mike Disney and Taryn first, and then got a group together, and then everyone started saying, I want to be playing this. Like Casey, John at Blue
My
Box.
wife's
So
got book club.
and now Tim
play.
just texted me during the show saying he's definitely playing now. So that's 8 characters. So you guys are going to get Fred the Farty. Sorry, but that's who he's playing. So you're going to have a gnome. You have a gnome fighter, and there's nothing I can do about it. So have at it. But yeah, so that's tomorrow night. Then I'm off for the weekend because it's a holiday weekend, and the next Gabbin is Sunday. This should be an interesting Gabbin. This ties in with tonight as well. Greyhawk and developing long-term campaign arcs. So I'm going to talk about how I do it and how organizations, family trees, antitheses, you know, all sorts of ways to do it. Continuing plot lines and adventures, adventuring groups. There's ways to do it. So we're going to talk about that. Just some tricks that I do, and you know, I have Anna and Tim on this. Maybe we'll have some other guests too. We don't have a living. I'm sorry, a Legends of Lore set for next Wednesday yet.
That's true. We
Yeah,
forgot
we
about
need.
that.
Yeah. Saturday, once again, is Tim's Underdogs. Please check that out.
But we
Saturday
have one
morning.
spare one that we talked about. Let's see if we can.
Yeah, if we have
revive that
to,
one.
we'll definitely do the spare one. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. is Tim's session. I'll be producing that and running that. Coming up before GreyhawkCon, please don't forget about this. The Bad Adventure Fundraiser event. It's actually that's the wrong one. It's now the not so spectacular old school adventure fundraiser event, because someone said you shouldn't call, Skip Williams is going to like it if you call Gargoyle bad. Well, guess what? It's bad. But I just decided to be facetious and put not spectacular. So there you go. Because I'm running Gargoyle for Eric Mona and James Jacobs and probably and maybe Jason Bowman too, and some other people. Yes. So we got it.
Prediction, that's going to be a really fun adventure.
I think so. That'll be the finale. John, I told John what he could run, and he goes, I don't want to run any of them. John is going to run something with vampiric dinosaurs. All right, that's all I know. All right, so just note that. Yes, they will be bad adventures, and it's all to benefit. It'll be our second fundraiser. It's going to be a small one-day, just at most 3. John may run 2, 3 streams. That's it.
Is this a one-shot, or is Eric Mona playing his Cleric of Ralashaz?
No, this is. I think I'm using characters out of Gargoyle. I don't know yet. I haven't decided that. I got 2 whole weeks, and 2 weeks is an eternity for me.
Mona's Cleric of Ralashaz is a crowd favorite.
Yeah, I may let him run him. I may. So. Yeah, we'll get there. I got 2 weeks, and that's one less character I got to work up then. But I know Stella Luna's playing in that group too. So, and I'm going to invite a couple other people. And I think I'm going to limit it to 5. We'll see. I'll get to the reach outs and who's that. But yeah, so the goal's $4,000 that day. Think we can do that? I think we can do that. So that is in 2 weeks. That is the 17th. The night before is the next fantasy mapping show. It's just so much going on, which is all good. I think that's it. Oh, no, it's not. Finally have this date. So this is Monday, July 25th, a Sunday. Specialty Priests of Greyhawk, finally. Eric Boyd, the grandfather himself, of the creator of Specialty Priests in 2E, and Dennis Malden Tetro. I finally got a date worked out with them. Monday, July 25th, 7:30. Okay.
Monday.
Oh, that should be Sunday. See, I was rushing. It's a Sunday. Sunday, July 25th. But remember, I have Gavin this Monday, and when I changed it, I messed up. It's a Sunday. Yeah, I'll change that. It's always something. All right, let's do the giveaways. It's been a long one tonight here, and just I'll see everyone shortly tomorrow. Let me do this.
Question.
What was that?
Great crowd.
It was great. It was
awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
$25 gift certificate. Here we go to CSL Entertainment. And the winner is. And tomorrow night's Reaper, by the way. Tomorrow night's Reaper. Tina, I think you're already in.
Yeah, I hope M Booger's already in.
Zump.
Zump.
You want to claim it,
Oh.
Zump. Zump's been on a roll, like on and off lately. Is Zump in? Gargamon, man, you guys are Zump. I don't see Zump on. I don't see Zump on to claim it.
No, there
There he is. He is. Grats.
Yes, good.
All right, I'll send you the code.
What's he got?
We are going to raid Guild Superior, who's doing Ghost of Saltmarsh, and plus Guild Superior is a highlight stream at Virtual GreyhawkCon. So we're going to raid into them, someone who's going to be streaming Virtual GreyhawkCon coming up, and he's going to do the Siege of Westkeep as his adventure. Yeah, and Gary Julian's been helping him with the background. Yes.
No kidding.
Yes.
Gary,
so
get to reading seat. And I know you've been busy with your move and stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot going, a lot of great things going on. So let's thank you for a wonderful crowd. Thank you for a wonderful show. John, Casey, thank you so very much. I think, I'm not trying to sound facetious. I think this one outshined the, where we thought it would be on detail. I think this is a great one. And this opens up more where we're going to talk about meta orgs in other regions.
We were just 2 or 3 regions.
Yeah.
Living Greyhawk had 30-something regions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think we've had about 2 years of living Greyhawk shows at this point, or at least a solid year and a half. And I've
Casey,
been
more
racking-
books, more books.
Hang in there for this raid, okay? Please
More
hang
books
in
for
there.
the
I've
other
been thinking,
areas.
like, what can we do with our future
We
shows?
wanna
I
have
think
a-
we need to do this.
All right, I
30
am.
volumes.
While they're talking, I am setting this up, and let's get this going. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow night, 7:30 start.
Thank you.
One shotter.
Thanks, and,
Let's get in. I want to raid them in, but I don't want to miss them. They're great people over there. So let's go in and give them a. Let's 5 times their numbers. How's that sound? That'd be awesome. That's good. Yes. That's awesome. 67. 5, 4, 3, 2,
Night.
1.
Good night,
See you
everybody.
tomorrow. Good night. All right, let me make sure it's went in.
Yeah. Chat switched over, so it seems to
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right,
That
welcome.
was